Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Paul Robles. I am the Associate CIO for Student Affairs IT, and I want to welcome you to this year's IT Summit. Thank you. So probably in typical Berkeley fashion, we're still going to have some of our colleagues making their way in. I think we work on Berkeley time, so I'm going to go a little slow to allow our folks to join us. But today is really a big milestone for the One IT community. We had over 510 staff register for this event, and that is huge. That is amazing. So thank you to everybody for being here. I even asked my fact checkers, and they confirmed this, that this is truly the largest IT gathering on this campus since 1868. That joke belongs to James Dudek, so James, wherever you are, thank you for that. Right. But as the chair for this year's summit, I really wanted to build an event. I wanted to build an experience that brought everybody together. And I know that when we are together as a group and we're having a conversation, we're having a dialogue, that we can really build the future of IT. And so today is really about you, and today is about our future as an IT community. So thank you for being here. The summit really is about an opportunity to see, to share, and to take pride in all of the work that we're doing. And it's awesome and it's exciting, and now more than ever, we need community because it's a tough time for our campus. And I know that we have enough brain power in this room to have us move forward, right? And so again, thank you for being a part of the community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your work. Thank you for taking pride in your work and just being here, because that's what today is about. And so in designing this day with my co-chair, Kevin Cornish, and the committee, we built a schedule that was a healthy mix of a lot of different activities for everyone. So I encourage you to take advantage of that and to find a new colleague, to find a new system, a new program that you're not familiar with, and get to know about that person, get to know that system and network, because that's part of what's so important about today. So I want to walk you through what our day is going to look like. In just a little bit, we're going to hear from our CIO, Larry Conrad, and then we're going to welcome Jessi with LinkedIn to give us her perspective on IT from a non-Berkeley view. Thank you, Jessi, for being here with us. And then we're going to have an IT leadership discussion to talk about the challenges and opportunities for building IT on this campus. And then there's lunch, and we're going to have lunch downstairs, and it's another great opportunity to come together to network. And of course, if you don't want to do that, it's your lunch, and maybe you want to talk about Game of Thrones. I know I haven't fully processed from Sunday, but I'll let you guys deal with that. It's probably worse than the Red Wedding, I tell you. It was pretty intense, but that aside. Then this afternoon, we're going to have a Birds of a Feather gathering. We're going to have our exhibit hall, poster sessions, and the more traditional presentations. And of course, like with any conference, we're going to have some time between the sessions so that you can network and get to know your fellow colleagues. And then around 5 p.m., if you're still around, we'd welcome you downstairs to the Bear's Lair, and maybe we'll take a toast to each other and have a drink and just enjoy the rest of our day. Lastly, what I want to do is I want to have you become aware of what's happening on Wednesday and Thursday with our post-summit learning opportunities. And again, this begins tomorrow. What we're featuring is 2 classes of 100 folks, one with customer service training and the other one with ITIL foundations. And so 100 of our colleagues are going to get an opportunity to participate in ITIL, which is an amazing thing. So of the folks in the room, who's taking the course in the next 2 days? Raise your hand. All right. Who's already taken ITIL within the last... That's great. Look around. That's a lot of folks. So by the end of this week, we're going to have more than half of our community having taken ITIL, right? If that's not the community coming together and having a shared framework and a way to do the work and have a shared vocabulary, nothing else will speak louder than this moment, right? We're coming together. So investing in ourselves, whether it's the professional development training, meeting with your colleagues, going to a conference, this is how we improve. This is how we get stronger. This is how we get better. And this is why we have this IT Summit, not only to share, but to give additional opportunities for everyone. And if we don't do that, then sometimes I feel like we're in jeopardy. There's an old saying out there from a CFO talking to a CIO, and the CFO says, what happens if we invest in developing our staff and they leave? And the CIO responds by saying, what happens if we don't and they stay? Right? Think about that for a moment, right? We have to move the campus forward, and we are a strategic driver for making that happen. And this is what today is about. So I just want to have a few thank yous for all the folks that brought today here for us. We have the committee and volunteers. If you're a committee member or volunteer, please stand up and just take a round of applause, because this is a lot of work to get this done. Thank you. I also want to thank Student Affairs and the Student Union for hosting us in this beautiful, recently renovated facility. So as you experience the rest of today, take a look at the facility. This is one of the newest buildings that we've renovated on campus, and we should take a little bit of pride in that work. Where's Michelle at? Hi, Michelle. Stand up, Michelle. Go ahead. Michelle is our project manager for the summit. Thank you. Michelle, you've done an amazing job. I don't ever want to do this again. Right? This is so much work. Thanks a bunch. Rita, where's Rita? Oh, Rita, thank you for putting up with me. Thank you. All right, so just a couple of housekeeping rules really quickly. We're gonna run through the morning. We're gonna try to squeeze in a break if we can, but if we're not able to, then restrooms are on the second and not second, I can't remember what floor we're on. First, second, fourth, and fifth floor, so just kind of make your way there. This is not North Carolina. You can go to the restroom and we don't care. Seriously, I'm sorry. I left Texas 3 years ago, and that's one of the reasons why. I'm so glad to be in California. So we have breakout sessions. You'll see either on our slides or the handouts, you'll have a little bit of a map to help you guide you in your way. We also have a photo booth just outside, so please take a moment and take a snapshot. Lunch is going to be on the very first floor, so just follow the stairwell all the way down, and you're going to find this long trail. I promise you the line won't be as long as the picnic, but it will be good food. And then we're going to have afternoon refreshments right out here at about 2:45. So it's been my pleasure to host be the chair for the summit this year, and it was really exciting to talk to so many folks. I'm not kidding when I tell people I've probably chatted with over 200 folks in person about what they would like to see at the summit. And so I hope you get that today. I hope you get that experience. So if you have any thoughts or have any questions and you see me down the hallway or see me in a session or walking on campus, please stop me, say hello, bend my ear, and I would love to get to know you. So thank you. It's been a pleasure. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce our CIO, Larry Conrad. I think Larry joined us about 3 years ago. He is our Associate Vice Chancellor for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer. Larry, I know you've had a busy year, and I suspect you have a lot to tell us. Please join us.
Good morning. Glad to see all these bright, shiny faces this morning, and 510 registrants. How about that? Isn't that amazing? I'm just thrilled to see that level of engagement for the IT community here at Berkeley. And I want to just start by thanking Paul and Kevin and the rest of the IT Summit Program Committee who put all this together. I think that 510 registrants is a testimonial to their vision and their focus on bringing us a really terrific summit this year. So, as I say, it is wonderful to see all of you, all these IT professionals in the same place. That was the impetus really for starting this 3 years ago. And of course, more generally, the One IT movement here at Berkeley. The whole goal is to bring us together to help build community and to offer opportunities to learn from each other and to leverage each other. So this year's theme is Building the Future of IT at UC Berkeley. You will hear today about some things that look to shape that future. But I'd like to start that discussion this morning by looking at sort of where things sit today. So, state of IT is not what I'm supposed to be talking about. As we look at the state of IT, which is impacted by things that are happening around us in the world and here on campus, there's no doubt that we're living in challenging times. We're all very aware of the financial challenges that UC Berkeley is currently facing. The university has a sizable structural deficit, and there's going to be no help from the outside. There's going to be no white knight, so to speak, riding in from the legislature or the governor or the board of regents to save us. We've got to fix this ourselves. And recent changes in the university leadership have created questions about the overall direction for the campus. However, it's also very clear that technology is pervasive here at Berkeley, and IT has traditionally been a vehicle for improving efficiency and saving money. Here at Berkeley, it's also been a strategic enabler for the university's teaching and learning research missions. It's clear that faculty, students, and staff need the services and support that we all provide to help them remain productive and efficient. So in the face of the challenges, we still have important jobs to do. In difficult times like these, it's even more important for us to work together and to look for creative ways to leverage each other in addressing the problems as they arise. We simply have to recognize that we're all in this together. We need to continue demonstrating the value of IT to the campus today on a day-in and day-out basis and look for ways that we can work together to accomplish great things. In spite of what's happening around us, we can leverage the power of One IT, the One IT movement in the community to serve campus needs. Because the truth is, we are building the future here at UC Berkeley together. So, IT folks are a resilient bunch, problem solvers by our very nature. We wouldn't be in this business otherwise. So we can help turn the challenges into opportunities. We have much to be proud of in a future that is bright with continued success. We need to continue telling the IT story and demonstrating the value to the larger campus communities through the support and services that we provide every day, as well as the larger projects that we engage in for continuous improvement. So, this seems like a good time to share some of those stories and those successes. And the progress with each other that helps build cohesion in uncertain times. And good things are happening here every day. I feel strongly that during times like these, we need to stay focused on the important and positive impact we are having on the campus. And let me share some of those stories. I want to start with the Berkeley Desktop and Cal Answers Staff Retirement Metrics Project Teams, which just last week were awarded the 2016 Chancellor's Outstanding Staff Awards for their collaborative efforts on those projects. I would like the members of those project teams to stand up and be recognized. It's early. The SIS project has made considerable progress, and we're looking forward to a final push towards completing the last go-live for the implementation this September. This has been a 3-year trek and a lot of work by a lot of people, and of course a huge investment on the part of the campus. This is a tremendous effort. The project has brought multiple teams together to find solutions for improving the student experience, especially when it comes to day-to-day business transactions. That goes from registering for classes, to viewing financial aid, to paying bills, advising, and more. The new SIS system already dramatically has improved these processes for students, even though the work is not yet done. There is more work to do. And, this is a complex project. I think most of you have a sense for that. So it's, there's a lot of work to do. So, I'm almost hesitant to do this, but I'm going to try it one more time. If you are here and working on the ASSIST project, please stand up. Yay, we did better. Oh, thank you. Another example is the SAIT group has recently been notified by the Student Technology Fee Committee that the proposal for student technology funds has been approved to move forward on a unified computer lab experience and a student technology help desk. On the former, what a radical idea that a student could walk into a computer lab in various places and basically have the same image. We think it's a tremendous, well, it's an idea whose time has come and perhaps is overdue. But if we can make this work, we also hope that this is something that other computer lab operators on campus will show an interest in and pick up and run with. On the latter, I was pretty shocked to discover that UC Berkeley is one of only 5% of the EDUCAUSE Core Data Survey participants that do not currently provide a student technology help desk for the entire student body. 5%. We need to do better than that. So this proposal was a group effort between SAIT, ETS, the library, and IST, and it serves as a great example of the One IT collaboration. Once approved by the Chancellor, this will be a key lifeline for many students. If you attended the One IT Haas event in April, you saw examples of how the School of Business has moved to a central help desk, which has allowed them to streamline and improve the unique services that they deliver to their community. We want to expand that to the entire campus. Another example is the Research IT unit in IST has significantly expanded options for Berkeley researchers. The campus researchers and other faculty responded well to the Berkeley Research Computing Initiative. Researchers have added over $1.2 million worth of equipment to the core or to the base Savio cluster. The total users are now approximately 750 faculty, grad students, and other researchers, with 270 of those being through the Faculty Computing Allowance Program, which provides up to 200,000 hours or core hours of computing per year per faculty or per ladder-ranked faculty member free. That's really a fantastic option and a new significant resource for our research community. Another example is the library and research IT groups have launched a new research data management partnership initiative, and you'll hear more about that as we put more flesh on those bones. But I think anybody involved in research understands that managing and protecting research data is just it grows in importance on a daily basis. Another example is in partnership with 5 other UC institutions and a number of other West Coast research universities, we've launched a 100 gigabit Science DMZ initiative. It's called the Pacific Research Platform, which is designed to support research activities at the highest level of connectivity available. We're still waiting to see what's going to come out of that, but we think that for many researchers, that'll be a game changer. Yet another example is distinct progress has been made at deploying IT service management principles here on campus. A common ticketing framework utilizing ServiceNow has been deployed, which serves campus shared services, IST, the School of Business, the School of Social Sciences, the library, the SIS project, SAIT, and ETS. For IST alone, that implementation has allowed us to consolidate 42 separate ticketing instances into one. I won't go into why we ended up with 42 separate instances in the first place, but we got down to one, and I think that's a huge improvement for the support community here. And we hope that this new ticketing framework will be even more widely utilized across campus, and we're trying to work up mechanisms, funding mechanisms, and support and governance mechanisms that will allow that to happen. But that's part of the broader ITSM, IT service management framework that we're pushing forward here at Berkeley. And of course, the ITIL training is a centerpiece to that. So ITSM roadmap work is nearing completion, so we expect to have more important ITSM accomplishments to share in a year. Another good example, ETS launched the Academic Innovation Studio, which is a wonderful new collaborative space for faculty in support of teaching and learning research in Donnell. In keeping with the One IT spirit, this is a joint effort with Research IT, the library, the Be Connected team, and the Digital Humanities team. So if you haven't had a chance to get over to Donnell and check that out, it's really something to see. And again, we're looking for some great things coming out of that. Another example, the Data Sciences Education Initiative, which is supported by Ryan Lovett in Statistics and EECS, was launched in the fall of 2015. That course is being taught using the Jupyter Notebooks platform, which is developed here at Berkeley by a team led by Fernando Perez. In doing so, students are able to work with Python code, data sets, and documentation directly through a web browser, easily build upon others' work, and share their work. From an IT perspective, we're able to run a compute-intensive course without the need for expensive computer labs. What started with 100 students in the introductory course last fall became 350 for the spring, and we expect that to go to 500 for the fall. So, in addition, there are several connector courses that bring data science into various majors across campus. And you've probably read, and the Chancellor has been very vocal about this, the data science curriculum could easily become, or we hope will become, a key differentiator for UC Berkeley. So these are just a few really, of the many important accomplishments and collaborations that have been occurring across our One IT family here at Berkeley. Each of these examples shows how great progress can be made, even in tight times and tight constraints, or tough times and tight constraints, when we work together and we leverage each other. This is real synergy, where the whole is truly greater than the sum of its parts. So in closing, I'm confident I speak for all of our leaders here at the university when I say that we are very grateful for the work each of you do every single day, particularly in the face of the present challenges. And for the accomplishments that we're collectively celebrating here at the IT Summit 2016, I have great confidence in all of you, in the strength and momentum we continue to build through our collaborative efforts, and in our overall resilience to build the future of IT together here at Berkeley. You will be hearing this morning, in a few minutes, from our keynote, Jessi Reel, and from a panel on building the future of IT about key principles, ideas, and trends that will help define our future. Please join me in spending these next few hours looking forward, because forward is the only direction we can go. Together, we will build the kind of IT future that the campus needs. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Liz Marsh.
Hello, everyone. I'm just popping in here for a second to actually introduce Bernie Guy, who is the user experience lead for the SIS project, and she'll be doing the formal introduction of Jessi, our featured keynote. So, come on up.
Good morning. What a great crowd. I'm really excited about today, and I'm really excited about the theme that we've got going that's going to be kicked off by Jessi in just a few minutes. Jessi Reel is joining us today for the keynote, and she's works at LinkedIn. She's the user experience lead for a very special team called the Internal Apps Design Group, and she supports IT people. She supports them in their work. And so I think this is a very interesting idea around design, and it's something I think that this group's going to find very interesting. But before I start, let me tell you a little bit about Jessi, who's sitting at the front here. Jessi is started her academic career as an artist, which is not unusual for someone who's interested in design. But then she went and got her master's degree in engineering and management. So she's got the business and the finance part. She actually worked in finance for 3 years, and she has the artistic part. But not just that, she's also an athlete. She was part of the U.S. rowing team, or was competing, getting ready to compete for the U.S. with the rowing team for the Olympics in 2011. So she's the closest person I know to be an Olympian. So it's pretty cool. I didn't mention that she did get both of her undergrad and her grad at the other school across the bay. So I call myself a double bear. So Jessi's a double cardinal. Anyway, welcome, Jessi, and we look forward to hearing from you. And if you want to hear more about design, 2:00 session in Madrone on about the SIS project and design. Jessi.
All right. Thank you, Bernie. That was a very nice introduction. I didn't make the Olympics. That was, we all get cut sometimes. So a few years training on the team, good learning experience though. So thank you for that. It's an honor to be here. Berkeley has such a reputation for being such a leader, and you guys are 15 minutes early, so you're doing something right. So today I want to share a little bit about why are you asking a designer to be speaking at an IT summit. Want to share a little bit about what we're doing at LinkedIn to try to innovate how we work, not just what we work on. And a quick little lesson on how we can practice user experience design or user-centered design in a lot of different ways. So first question, why is a designer talking at an IT summit? Well, as Bernie mentioned, I work with engineers to help engineers build internal tools that help run the company, basically. But I think I was also invited to kick off a conversation. And I'd like to kick off that conversation about how the work that we all do helps people's lives. And I want to explore how we can learn from each other across disciplines to be even more impactful. So whether our job title is software developer, tech support, designer, medical doctor, researcher, psychologist, we're all problem solvers. Directly or indirectly, we look at how people's lives and what they're doing, what they struggle with, and we try to find ways to help and make it easier. And whether we're software developers or architects, designers, construction workers, whether we're designing a skyscraper or whether we're designing a website or whether we're building a sewer infrastructure or a server infrastructure, we're all builders. And in this room, as technologists, we are building the infrastructure, the foundations of the world where people live. So I would wager, oh, I have a clicky thing. All right, good. All right. So I would wager that in some way, everybody in this room could describe themselves this way. We help people's lives be easier by identifying issues they face and solving those problems by building products and services and change how they live their lives. So in some way, no matter what our job title is, every one of us in this room has the power to impact other people's experience. And in that way, in some degree, we are all user experience designers. So what is user experience? Let's talk about that. So design is sometimes thought about making things look pretty, making things look elegant. We can imagine design as making beautiful paths in the garden, where the flowers go, where the trees go. But maybe users don't need that. User experience design is about thinking about where people want to go and getting them there quickly. Human-centered design is about making technology more human. It is about intentionally fitting technology around the humans instead of fitting the humans around the technology. So, user-centered design doesn't have to be pretty, though it can be. It's really about making things very functional. Great user experience, it's about focusing on the functionality and the usability. An example is some of you guys are programmers. So elegant code can be an artistic in a virtue, but it can also help developers collaborate better with each other, and they can help the page load faster. So it can actually, elegance can be more performant as well. And this is kind of like user experience design. So the basic design of user experience is just focusing on people. How are they going to be using this? How are we helping them solve their problems? So I feel like we could use design to help solve a lot of problems in engineering, but I also have experienced that learning from engineering helps us solve problems in design. So I'd love to share a little story about what we're doing on internal apps design at LinkedIn, and sharing how we're learning from the engineers and the IT, and how we're learning from the project managers and MBAs. And I feel like learning from other fields is what's helping us unlock some breakthroughs in our own. So I'd love to share a little story about what's going on at my team. When I joined LinkedIn, like UC Berkeley, I believed in the mission. I was so invigorated by the idea that LinkedIn is trying to tackle some really big problems. How do we have better access to education? How do we help people have more economic opportunity by improving themselves using technology? And I was like gulping the Kool-Aid, right? And you're like, I just want to work on these cool things. And then I got assigned to an internal team working on projects nobody saw. So, at first you're like, all right. I was luckily working with, there's 4 other designers on the team. I was like, I'm working from really talented people. I'm learning from them. This is really cool. And then a few weeks after joining the team, they decided that they needed the personnel on more important projects. So they moved everybody else off. And I felt like the new team was dissolved, and they left me to because I just got there, they're like, we can't move her yet. She'll just keep the lights on. And I felt like I was completely alone. And I felt like I was working on products that nobody cared about. And I don't know if you guys have ever felt this way, but as the reorgs were happening and things were happening around me that I didn't really understand, I felt at that moment totally powerless. I felt like I was a meaningless cog in an impersonal corporate machine. And I'm not gonna lie, I was devastated. I had I felt down and out for months because I couldn't see how the work that I was doing was really making a difference to anybody. And because we had stripped down so much, instead of being able to have 5 designers working on 6 projects, we had 1 designer at the time. Another guy ended up staying on the team for a little bit. But business as usual wasn't actually possible with 1 designer or 2 designers on a team. So we had to improvise. And at the time, we started this thing called office hours, and where we invited any engineer working on internal products to come and talk to us about design. And these sessions were a massive turning point for me because I started being able to focus on one person at a time and seeing how the skills and the expertise or just things I like to solve could help other people and how I could learn from them to solve the projects that we're working on together. I started feeling more inspired by the work that I was doing because I was helping one person at a time. So at first we didn't know what we're doing in these office hours. So we made it up as we went. After improvising a few sessions, we came up with a template that started seeming to work. So first we wanted to understand the product and the people. Who are our users? What are they trying to accomplish? And how do they use the tools to accomplish that? Now, I want to note the difference between understanding what the tool does and how they use the tool from what they're trying to accomplish. Imagine thinking about a vacuum, right? We can say, hey, let's innovate a vacuum by adding new features or making it easier to do this and that. But what is the user trying to accomplish? They're trying to get their house clean. So first we have to identify that they need to clean their house before we can innovate how we make a better vacuum. It's important to differentiate those things because sometimes by looking at the bigger problem, we can sort of see through the clouds and see how we can innovate better. The second piece is trying to identify the right problems. What are some of the challenges our users face? How can we help? How can we define these questions? The third step was just actually taking time to brainstorm solutions. So what we're looking at is actually 1-hour sessions, 20 minutes to understand the problems or understand the people, 20 minutes to understand the problem, and then 20 minutes to start brainstorming solutions. And the easiest way was to see if there was other people working on similar projects and just connect the right people to existing solutions. The second, we tried to define some of those smaller problems and see if we could whiteboard out solutions. So sometimes the right people in the room with a whiteboard can actually get a long way. We can sort of create some order out of that chaos and get people on their way, envisioning what they want to build next. And then the third piece is how could we advocate for more resources? How could we tell the story to get more opportunity to tackle this in more depth? And I'd love to focus a second on this piece. as word got out about how we were doing these little consulting sessions, more engineers started coming in, and I started learning about more projects than the first original 6 we'd worked on. Like a lot more projects. Like there's like at least 50 internal tools at LinkedIn that smart engineers are building for each other to improve their workflow. And what I started learning from one team was helping me like connect and helping other folks on other teams so we could talk to each other. Those sessions were more about me learning about all these smart people, tackling big important problems, all the problems that you guys are solving as well, and making those connections. So first we only started using these 1-hour time slots. And then a gentleman came in and he was tasked to build a tool in a few weeks, 2 sprints, so it was like 3 or 4 weeks, that would replace LinkedIn's need to buy an off-the-shelf product. So to license that off-the-shelf project for 1,500 engineers would have cost us a few $1 million that year. And so he was tasked with building a tool that would replace that $1 million bill within a few weeks. So at that point, it was like, yeah, it makes sense to like take a little extra design time to like, take an extra day, sneak in some extra hours to help him to build this tool. It's like $1 million tool, right? And then another team came in, and they had a backlog of tickets. There was only a few engineers on that team, and as LinkedIn scaled, they just couldn't handle the workload, and they were getting behind weeks, which was slowing a lot of different people's projects, their release time, weeks. And so this was having a huge ripple effect and slowing everyone down. And they would need to hire at least 10 more people to meet this need. And so they came to office hours, and we started sketching out some solutions. We helped them visualize their idea to have a tool that would automate some of those processes. And so instead of hiring 10 people, they hired 1 engineer, 1 web developer to build out this tool. And I'm not saying that we should replace jobs with intelligent tools, but I'm just suggesting that potentially what we create can help us get more impactful. I believe that thinking intentionally about leveraging the work that we do, we can have even more, in rowing we call it power per stroke, but even more bang for our buck, so to speak. So after talking with both of these teams, I realized that we could make a case for resources on these internal projects by building an ROI to put a valuation on them. And I realized that we could potentially break this equation into 3 buckets. 1, was there an off-the-shelf cost? Was there an off-the-shelf product that we could replace? Now, sometimes there's a cheaper product. Maybe it's Google Analytics. Buy it. They've already built it. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? If it's cheaper to buy than build, that's awesome. But if it's cheaper to build than buy, the value that that off-the-shelf competitor would be is at least the value that our tool is to the company. The second bucket is we're thinking about employee time. So we talked about that 1 web dev versus 10 security engineers. We're also seeing that improving people's speed and efficiency can have huge impacts. And then the third piece is this sort of the performance of the actual tool. So an example of this is some of the monitoring and infrastructure tools we have helps people resolve issues or outages. So if the ads network, for instance, is down, it's costing thousands and thousands of dollars per minute to be down because we're not serving those ads. So if an infrastructure tool can resolve that issue quickly, then every minute they get it faster is saving the company thousands and thousands of dollars. Potentially up to like $400,000 a year if we can improve that process. So there were sort of 2 learnings that I got from this project. One is that an employee's time is one of the biggest areas of opportunity. And I think we saw this with the idea of these, the idea of leveraging people to have bigger impact. Now these are very rough calculations, so don't quote me on this, and they're all public information. But let's say LinkedIn earns about $4 billion a year. And let's say we have about 400 million users. So that means that every user is worth about $10 a year. Now, every engineer costs the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that means that 1 engineer is worth the same thing as 20,000 users. I think my math is right on that. And so doubling the productivity of 200 engineers could be worth the same amount as acquiring 2 million new users. So all of a sudden we're starting to think like, wow, innovating the employees' time and innovating how they work can be as impactful as like developing whole new products. So the other piece of this was also this equation was starting to help us make a translation. And that translation is between like creating one language to put a value on the work that we do. I don't know about Cal, but something I've observed in some of the companies I've worked with, big and small, not just LinkedIn, is that sometimes there's a rift between designers or engineers or product people. Designers want something sleek or intuitive. Engineers want solutions that are fast and efficient and reliable. And product leadership wants something that will impact the bottom line and move metrics. So at first, some engineers didn't even want to work with design because they felt like we would slow them down, or design would just make things pretty and get in their way of their fast, scrappy, efficient process. And leadership unfunded some design projects because they didn't see how it helped the business. Now with this equation, we could focus on how design could add value to engineers, how we could help them speed up, how we can simplify their workflow. And we could also be champions of what the engineers were doing, and be able to advocate and help the engineers tell their story. So this was just a thought exercise. I don't think I've ever actually printed it anywhere. But this idea that that the engineers and the folks who were working on these infrastructure and IT behind the scenes, these were the unsung heroes. These were the ones who were keeping the engines running, that were running the whole ship. So engineers started getting excited with working with us, and leadership started getting excited about how design thinking could help seriously impact LinkedIn's future. And there's some really inspiring leaders at LinkedIn who are championing this. And I believe there's some really exciting leaders here that are also championing this. And interesting in this whole process, I started seeing how the work that we do could actually help people and actually help LinkedIn's bigger vision. And I believe the work that all of you guys do really helps UC Berkeley's bigger vision. And as we zoom out and we start thinking, okay, how can we help one engineer? How can we help a team of engineers? How could that team of engineers or multiple teams, how could we zoom out and have maybe this whole organization? Or maybe what we're seeing in this organization, the solutions we're creating here, maybe we could apply that in this other team, and maybe we could actually start solving some of these inefficiencies or scarcity mindsets across the organization. And then, as of course the designer who extrapolates a lot, I'm like, what if we could change not just our these teams, but maybe the company? And what if we could organize? And what if we could innovate the industry? And then what if we could use design thinking to help innovate society or some of the systemic problems that we face every day, or the society faces every day? And in fact, I think that we could use design thinking to innovate how we work, not just what we work on. And I believe that we could use these processes to unlock some huge systemic issues around the inefficiencies and scarcity that all organizations face. And this journey has helped me transform personally between feeling dejected and almost pointless in the work that I was doing, to start seeing how the work that I was doing could help potentially have these bigger impacts. So what's the turning point? Budget cuts and personnel cuts forced us out of our comfort zone. Business as usual just didn't work anymore on our team, so we had to improvise. And how did we do that? We leveraged user-centered design process to help us really listen and work with the people that we worked with, and co-create solutions that could impact all of our lives. So you may be sitting there in your heads and be like, okay, Jessi, that's great, good job, your team. How does that apply to us? So I'd love to share a few quick tips about how we can practice some user-centered design, and maybe this could be applied to a lot of processes that we work on. So there's a whole lot of really cool design diagrams, because designers love to make diagrams. So if you Google design process, you're going to find a lot of really cool things. This one I picked because user-centered design and understand, create, and deliver, all UCD, easy to remember. So first, understand. User research helps us produce insights. Talking to people starts with empathy. And as we start having these conversations, our mind starts opening and our ideas start broadening. And as we start looking at those patterns and hearing those voices, we start realizing that we could start seeing patterns, and maybe we could actually start defining some problems. And that kind of helps us converge the thinking and the information. And then once we understand the people and the problems, we can start thinking about how could we create solutions? And this is where we start ideating and creating ideas. So again, once our sort of process then goes to expand and diverge again. And then once we have a whole bunch of cool ideas on the table, then we can start saying, okay, what could we build within certain constraints? What could we build within a certain time slot? What are our resources, and how do we actually leverage that to build things? So we start converging on some ideas there. And then we start running into test users' feedback. We start converging some more. And then, as we sort of ship ideas and get them through this process, we want to be able to measure that success. So we sort of that ROI question again, and then we want to iterate, and we want to get through this process. Now, a lot of, whether we call it lean UX or agile, there's a lot of different terms. I don't want to step on anyone's toes, so I'll just call this nimble design, I guess. But this whole idea of we want to not get hung up on any one of these steps. We want to sort of don't let perfect get in the way of good. Sometimes it does make sense to take the time and really dive into these certain pieces of this, but part of it's just also like being light on our toes. Sometimes you can get 80% of the way there with 20% of the effort. And usually it's that last 20% that gets us stuck in the weeds, and we run into that all the time. So here's some tips. First, understand. Listen to your people. First and foremost, user-centered design is about empathy. It's about talking with real people and studying them, immersing ourselves in the problems at hand. It's about seeing patterns, listening for the shared melody and the stories that we hear. Seek out people you're building solutions for. Talk to them. Ask them what inspires them. Ask them what frustrates them. Ask them what they're trying to accomplish in their work and what the future is. To prepare for this talk, the organizers introduced me to a few of your colleagues, and I wanted to talk to a few folks that represented different slices of life in IT at Berkeley. And these are the 4 questions I asked them. What are they inspired about? What do they do? What frustrates them? And what would be their vision for the future? Now, I am by nature not a very good listener. I come from a loud, opinionated family that everybody's talking all over each other. So listening wasn't really in our vocabulary. But this whole thing is about giving it a shot. Sometimes I'm still surprised how powerful listening actually can be. So if our goal is to get out of our own heads and start seeing the world from somebody's eyes, we can actually start broadening our own vision and seeing new opportunities. So the second thing is, when we create, look for patterns and identify the right problems. Research helps us identify those patterns and starting to find the right problems. And intelligent design is also about picking the right problems that will be most impactful to solve based on what the world, based on this world of limited resources that we're all operating in. And then third, deliver. Collaborate and iterate on solutions. It's about collaborating well with others to optimize what can be imagined with what can be built. I've seen a number of really great designs and a lot of great ideas just never get off the ground because nobody could build them in time. I've also seen some amazingly smart people building technology that nobody would actually use because they didn't start with the right question. They didn't start with the right problem. So I believe that intentional design and technology development has to look at that bigger picture. In order to ship great products or help people with what we do, we have to look at the intersection of ideas, technology, and business constraints. So the more that we can learn from the experts around us and across these 3 fields, the more that we can build solutions that can actually launch to help people. So we've kicked off this conversation about how user-centered design is all around us. To some degree, we are all designers because we're all impacting other people's experiences. And we've talked a little bit about how, at LinkedIn, we're trying to innovate the process of how we work, not just what we build, to be more user-centric. And I've shared a few quick tips about how we could practice some user-centered design. Now I'd love to conclude with a few thoughts. I believe that we can leverage design thinking to help us be more human. I believe we can use our skills in technology to build a more human world for each other. So I'd love to leave you with 3 challenges. Seek to understand. Challenge yourself to talk to somebody new. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe if every single person in this room set up a coffee date with someone else they haven't met yet, imagine what we could learn from each other. Maybe it's talking to a Lyft driver or someone at the grocery store. Getting out of our context and getting out of our heads. In listening to other people's stories, we start to really see the world from more perspectives. Every time we get out of our own context, we double our experience. We can broaden our own imagination and see the world in a more colorful, multifaceted, more loving, and more inclusive place. 2, create. Look for opportunities to add value. Sometimes listening to these people and getting out of our comfort zone uncovers issues that others might be blind to. Sometimes we've put up with the same problems for so long we don't even see it anymore. It's like that pile of dirty clothes or that dirty dish in the sink. You're just like, God, no, I don't want to look at that. I'm just going to pretend it's not there, you know? And I think we do that a lot in our society. Sometimes we're like, it's not convenient, so let's not tackle that right now. So I would suggest don't let a job title get in the way of solving a problem for your people. You know, I'm an engineer, a designer, finance, athlete, like whatever. It doesn't really matter what that job title is to really start adding value in ways that we can. Don't let someone tell you can't, that's not your problem. That's not the way we do it. That's not how we've done it before. Get in the way of asking, well, why not? How can we? How can we work around those constraints? Every time we identify an issue that nobody else is working on is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to see how our skills can uniquely contribute in a new way. For me, the reorganization of the internal apps design team meant redefining what I thought it meant to be a designer. It meant redefining what I thought it meant to create a beauty in this world and to help others. And I had to get out of my own head to really understand what the engineers and the teammates and the colleagues were really struggling with and co-create with them solutions that could actually impact each other. So if you keep running into the wall of status quo, maybe there's an opportunity there. An opportunity to question our conventions, a chance to change our assumptions, a chance to change the rules of the game, and a chance to design your environment and the environment and the lives that everybody lives. And third, I believe that solving small problems and small patterns can help us solve big ones. Working with one engineer at a time is helping me see patterns of how design can help groups of engineers, and seeing opportunities to start imagining how we could help the whole ecosystem. Sometimes seeing those small patterns is helping me see big ones, us see big ones. Sometimes seeing those small solutions is helping us imagine the big ones. And some problems I know in the world happen, the biggest problems happen when we dehumanize each other, when humans treat others humans as not equals or they don't get it, they're not included. And I know I feel helpless and overwhelmed in changing those big things. But I believe we can practice solving them in the little things, in listening, in compassion, and resolving human suffering in the small daily projects that we work on. Even in software development or tech support, even in building products or services that not too many people will see, I believe that those practices will help us build a more compassionate and bigger society. Perhaps if we continue to be intentional about helping people in the little things, those patterns can add up in a big way. Now, I'm not saying that design or technology will solve all of life's problems. God, that would be great if that could be the case. But I do feel that everyone in this room are problem solvers. Everyone in this room are builders. And we're all co-creators in the world that we live in. And we're all building the technology that people's lives run on. And I believe in practicing empathy and listening and learning from each other, particularly people who are different from us. That's where we'll be able to innovate faster in the work that we do and innovate how we do work, not just the work that we work on. So together, I believe that we can build a more human and more compassionate world. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Take some questions. So we're doing some questions. Waiting for some speakers. Where is it? Where's the microphone? You've got a question for Jessi. Welcome.
What do you know? I will break the ice. So can you talk about how at a place like Berkeley and IT, like a lot of our role, we maybe don't have as many programmers who are building things, but I think your message about design is really important. And how can we, how should we, the leadership at Berkeley, support this? Like, what can we do to really help make it become a thing? One IT became a movement. How can we create a movement around design?
That's a big question. So I got my start in the tech space through startups. And, the first startup I worked on was like this other guy. He was actually a rower. He was a 3-time Olympian. And he was trying to he just needed someone to like do some design and some front-end development. And I think the lesson to take from startups is that usually we don't have enough people with the right job titles. Like, we just don't have the right people. So we have to kind of like improvise what we do have. And we have to sort of develop, take what we do know and what we've experienced and then double it. And let's read those blogs and let's read, let's take some Lynda courses or, I think that the more that we can implement this is by just learning. And I feel like UC Berkeley is such a leader in learning that I feel like this is where we can be innovators in that.
You showed a diagram that had 3 parts to it. I think there was technology, usability, and I think it was business practice. So I love that diagram. That's the one, yeah. But from another perspective, it just looks messy. Where do we start? Do we start with the business case? Do we start with technology? Do we start with usability? And how does that fit into an organization that might be hierarchical or siloed or have other priorities?
Yeah, I think one of the things is that this process is, I organize this in a linear way, but a lot of design diagrams are circular. So I do feel like we have to start where we start and start where we are right now and start having those conversations with other people. I think that even as engineers or designers, we try to think about things and solve things in the way that we know. And I feel like that putting that ROI equation starts as asking the questions of, what is the return on investment of the way I work? Like, I've been told for years, like, how can you put a value on the design work? And it's taken years to figure out, the previous equation where it's like, maybe we can start thinking about putting the value on the time. How can we improve, even if we don't know the right numbers to these, like even if we don't know the answers, we can ask the right questions. So we can, like the variables in this equation, the fact that we can ask these buckets, we're like, okay, what if we can improve student productivity or faculty productivity by 10%? Now, how much are those faculty members getting paid? How much time are they spending using this tool or this process? Okay. Now, if we take how much they're getting paid, and then we times it by how many faculty members there are, and then we take 20% of that and say, could we improve their productivity by 20%? Then that number gets big pretty quickly. So I think sort of having these thought exercises, even if we don't know how much they're getting paid, and even if we don't know what that percentage is that we could improve their life, starting to think about that in terms of the scale of our impact, I think can have a lot of power in identifying and telling our own story. And I think that that's what's helped us in the design team, gain momentum. So it got like peeled down to a few different, basically, 1 or 2 designers, and we kind of rebuilt from the ashes, and we rebranded, and we built all these cool marketing things to tell that story about how internal products can add value to the bottom line. And so, we've rebuilt our team. We've hired people everybody on our team has both an engineering degree and a design degree. And I think that that's just part of trying to talk to people and get outside of our context and trying to talk to the people who are who do have the business side of things, or maybe they are designers, or maybe they are technologists.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for everything. A lot of great stuff to know. I have a question. you talk about user-centered design. I'm also curious, in terms of the students on this campus, a lot of them are go-getters. They're self-starters. They solve their own problems along the way. And I'm really curious about user-driven design versus user-centered design. What are your best practices in terms of making sure that users are involved in understanding, creating, and delivering? How does LinkedIn, how does your department do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know you guys are in academia because you ask really good questions. So I think with our team, and I can only speak from what we've experienced, is that our model shifted from designers thinking through all the design talks, like when we had to redefine business as usual, we pivoted to a consulting model. So more of the work that we're doing is facilitating engineers doing the design work themselves, and they are the product owners and they are the ones that are working on it. So some of the frameworks that we're building around that is to facilitate people thinking as designers or thinking, again, it transcends being able to have best practices from product management or best practices from design or engineering. These don't have to follow job titles, but it's really about facilitating that in each other, and that's what I'm excited about being here with you guys, because we're starting that conversation and we're talking about how to be those go-getters and how to leverage the learnings from others to innovate in everything that we do. So I feel like that could apply to the students in helping facilitate. Design thinking can help facilitate a lot of things, regardless of what industry we're in.
So we've all heard the principle that you mentioned, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. When you're designing technology products, like a website that I built or an app or a tool or something, if it's not fabulous the first time people go to check it out, they're never coming back, unless they have to. So what is the tipping point of how good is good enough, in design thinking to really roll something out to get that effect that people will keep coming back?
Yeah, that's another great question. Luckily, with internal tools, most of the people have to use the products that we use. So we have a little luxury there. So getting something better is better than nothing at all. It's also really good for your ego because they're like, thank God, something's better than it was. So I think that there is a sort of fine line there, right? We have to figure out what can get shipped, and sometimes you have to slim out some of the nice-to-haves there. And I think that having those conversations of what the user value for all of these helps us prioritize some of the features. So I do feel like, in order to ship things, we have to trim out some of the bells and whistles sometimes just to get things to market. But I think if we can understand, and this is where I believe that, going back to that tripod, I believe the best conversations happen when a product person, a developer, and a designer get in the room and they just hash it out together. And part of my personal design process is talking with developers and okay, this option, how fast could we build this? And how fast could we build this? And try to have that conversation around, maybe there's not just one design that should be built and, you hand off the golden design and then the developers are like, yes, I will build that now. No, it's a co-creation process where we really figure out how to optimize the impact and minimize the costs. There's one of the frameworks that we've developed is, whether the engineers put this list together, but sort of understanding all the pain points that people want or need out of a new product. And then maybe we could even align some features that align with addressing those pain points. And we chart those in one axis of how important they are to users. And then we chart in another axis how hard it is to build. And the ones that are easiest to build with the highest impact, we build those first. And sometimes even just as simple as charting those 20 features on a graph can really help us identify how to get something to market and be the most impactful.
So I've had the very unpleasant experience of putting a lot of money into building a system that when it rolled out, people absolutely hated. So this was at a prior gig at another university. But what we did was we built a system that was to the specs of the sponsoring department. The department said, we're the experts, we're the sponsors, we're supporting this thing, we want it built X, Y, Z, A, B, C. We built the dang thing, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. What we didn't realize is that the actual end users, who weren't the functional users, weren't going to like it. So I guess this is fundamentally a political question, but do you have any ideas on how do you keep something like that from happening? In other words, when the people who stand up and say, we're the experts, we know what's needed, but they really don't, how do you get around that?
Well, if it's a political issue, I don't want to touch it. Not my. I feel like what you just identified is ubiquitous across, whether it's a startup, whether it's a big tech company, whether it's an academic or nonprofit institution. And I think that a few of you guys I talked to in prepping for this talk, is the idea of if you only took to one person, you probably could have learned something, beforehand. So there's obviously a desire in the industry to look at metrics, and sometimes as designers we're like, yeah, but metrics could be faked, and sometimes expert opinion is more valuable than an A/B test. But sometimes having that feedback early is going to help. And I think some of you guys are already practicing that, where you're talking to people about how a new system is going to be used. And I do feel like having those conversations up front, even if it takes a few weeks or months even to sort of get a beat on what people need, it goes back to that slide around this guy, right? This is the path that you designed, and someone was like, this is expert opinion, we could, this is going to be a great path. And people are like, nope. I want to not use it. So I think that having those conversations early about how people need and what their goals are to get there, and what some of their pain points are of how, what the cost of adopting something new would be. And I think also what I've observed in some of the projects that I'm working on is that even just by asking people get excited about the work that you're doing. So we're redesigning an A/B testing platform. Nothing to the scale that you're talking about, but some of the people who use it, the power users that use it the most, they had specific requirements, and the previous tool wasn't really addressing those needs. And so even just by having those conversations up front got them more excited. Even now, we haven't really been able to build all the features that they wanted, but the fact that we listened to them first got them excited about it, and they felt like they were co-creators and they had a voice in the process. So I do feel like starting with users and starting with those conversations can help inspire and broaden our expert opinion. And then having data and validation. So sort of the traditional user research processes. You talk to people, maybe you have some interviews, and then maybe you look at market trends and understand some sort of more quantitative research, and you start building some prototypes, and then you get those prototypes in front of users, and you start seeing, hey, would this work? How does this solve the problems? And then you start refining and iterating, and then you build it, and then you start testing. So there's kind of this idea of feedback every step along the way. And that's going to help us, again, make sure that we're solving the right issues and solving the right problems that people want to actually use. That's a great question.
So I think you've touched on this a couple of times with the last couple of questions. I think the notion of getting user feedback early and often makes tons of sense. But I also wonder if there's an implicit contract to use that feedback, and then how you balance that against the 80-20, and how you then sort of communicate, yeah, I can get you this far, and then the fear that you're going to lose that audience if you don't give them the thing you want, and so then you're hesitant to start that process. And so if you could just talk a little more about that.
Yeah. So I feel like transparency helps. I just drove through Canada last week, and not to get political, but I was flipping through the channels, and one of the things, they had a bunch of Canadians who were talking about some of the issues that were getting voted on in the Senate that week. And they had documentary style with the nice depth of field and a portrait. And so they had, real people just talking about the issues. And they're like, hey, this is what's going on. These are the pros and cons. And it was so informational and transformative. And it wasn't like, hey, think like us, and have these sort of warring pundits. It was very pragmatic. It was very sort of just, hey, this is what's going on. And one of the things I heard from that little video snippet was that people were like, we're voting on this next week. These are the challenges we're trying to face, and we're not going to solve it in one vote. We're not going to solve it in one legislation. We're going to keep working on it. We're going to refine it. And so I think that can also be done if we're transparent about things, because I think people get it. If you're like, hey, we can't afford everything on this shopping list, so what are the top 3 things that are important to you? And I think that can be really powerful, because I think if we're transparent about things, then of course people are like, oh, I get it. Like, I can't get everything I want, but I'd rather get something than not getting a product out the door. And I think also having that ROI helps us prioritize those products, because I think that sometimes there is a balance between shipping something quickly and being quick and nimble and getting something out quickly that can then get user feedback and then get tested and get iterated on, versus also taking the time to thoughtfully think through things. So I think there's definitely a balance between how long you spend listening to people and how long the wish list is, and how do you prioritize different people. And I think the answer is transparency. And people are the biggest fans of you even if they can't get everything they want. The fact that they feel listened to is really powerful.
Time for a couple more questions.
All right.
I think everyone's
Awesome. Thank you.
I just wanted again to say thanks to Jessi. We have a little tiny piece of our appreciation for you. So thank you again.
you so
This is
much.
really wonderful to have you here
Go
today.
Bears.
So now we've got a little Easter egg for you, and I'd like to invite Patricia Donnelly up here to introduce our egg.
Okay, so before we move on to the next part of today's IT Summit, we want to take a moment to formally recognize a very special person who, with an inaugural IT Summit Award of Distinction. This award is being given in recognition of the significant and sustained contributions made to the UC Berkeley information technology community. Therefore, on behalf of the UC Berkeley Campus One IT community, I'm happy to bestow this award of distinction upon Dr. Andrew Ziri, Vice Provost for Strategic Academic and Facilities Planning. Dr. Ziri, can you join us on stage? Andrew Ziri has served as Vice Provost since July 2014 and has been a professor conducting biomedical engineering research since 1997. He received his PhD in theoretical and applied mechanics at Cornell University. In his administrative appointments, Vice Provost Ziri coordinates campus-level planning for academic and facilities issues here on the Berkeley campus. He has provided oversight for a number of interdisciplinary research and education programs and has led academic program reviews of departments and schools at Berkeley. In his previous work as Dean of the Graduate Division, his responsibilities extended to the 11,000 graduate students in over 100 degree programs. But for us, in terms of his contribution to our IT community, Vice Provost Ziri has gone above and beyond his normal faculty service. He serves on 2 of our IT governance committees. He serves as chair of the IT strategy committee and as a member of the IT executive committee, though his engagement with us actually started many years ago. It is quite rare for faculty administrators to be so dedicated to working with IT staff to understand and address our many complex challenges. Vice Provost Ziri could not have been a stronger advocate for and collaborator with the IT community. And for that, we are all so incredibly grateful.
Thank you. And I just want to hitchhike on Patricia's comments and just read a short paragraph that I had put in the letter to Andrew when we were notifying him about this. And I just want to say I personally congratulate you on receiving this award. In working with you on various initiatives over the past 3 years that I've been here, I've seen directly how well-deserved this recognition is. Your vision for our community, commitment to improving the university, and appreciation of the role IT plays today on campus is widely recognized and appreciated. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, maybe you should, yeah. And please allow me to read the engraved statement. Award of Distinction bestowed upon Andrew Ziri, Vice Provost, Strategic Academic and Facilities Planning, presented by Larry Conrad, Associate Vice Chancellor for IT and CIO, on behalf of the UC Berkeley campus, One IT Community, May 24th, 2016. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patricia. Thank you, Larry. I just want to convey a brief note of appreciation to this group. I have enjoyed so much my work over these many years with the IT community. I think way back to Graduate Division and GLOW and the CTC. I think about CalTime and CalPlanning and the Enterprise Data Warehouse. We've grown, I think, together as a campus in our ability to do really great things. So much so that now you're completing the student information system installation, and it's as though it's effortless. I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed. So good luck to all of you, and I look forward to many wonderful developments in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
And are we ready for break? Okay, Kevin.
Liz, I get no introduction? Good morning. I'm Kevin Cornish. I'm the head of IT over at the business school. And I'm going to ask 5 leaders from IT to come up on stage and join me. We're going to do a little song and dance. We're going to answer some questions that you all provided when you registered for the summit. So I've got 6 questions. Patricia, if you want to come up, and Bill, and Liz, and Larry, and Angela. So when you all registered for the summit, you had the opportunity to provide some questions that some of these leaders are going to answer. I'm going to prime the well a little bit by asking the first set of 5 or 6 questions, but I'd really like you to think about what you want to ask this group of leaders who are courageously sitting up here waiting for you to ask them anything. So I'm going to start just by introducing them again. We have Larry Conrad, who is our CIO and Associate Vice Chancellor for IT. We have Patricia Donnelly, who's the Assistant Dean for Instruction and Technology over at the Law School. We have, she took my job. We have Liz Marsh, who's the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Larry's Chief of Staff in the Office of the CIO. We have Angela Blackstone, who has got that effortless job of doing something with SIS. I'm surprised she even showed today. It's so easy. I'm kidding. And we have Bill Allison, who's our CTO on campus. So I'm going to ask the first question, and this question, Patricia, I'd like you to start by answering. I'll ask a question, and Patricia's going to start, and then please the rest of the panel chime in. So this One IT initiative that we've been on, it's been a journey to build IT community, to break down the silos between our various technology organizations, and standardize and improve service for our customers across the campus. We've been on this journey for a couple of years. I'm going to ask you, Patricia, to start by answering the question of, is this initiative working, and what is the future for One IT here at Berkeley?
Okay, well, from my perspective, I do think that the One IT community effort is working, and I think that it's brought together many of the IT organizations that exist on the Berkeley campus. I think that we've already seen, many of us have heard stories of people coming here coming to One IT events who really had never been engaged before with the rest of the IT community and meeting other people, just even in the networking. Then finding opportunities to collaborate with another department or finding individuals who had already solved problems that they were struggling with. And also just even finding out about services that they were not aware that Central IT offered. Something exciting is going to be coming up soon. The Office of the CIO is going to be rolling out a service catalog. The Office of the CIO has been working with the Central IT organization, Student Affairs IT, Educational Technology Services, and Campus Shared Services IT. Imagine being able to look up and find who you contact for a service. This has really been a problem for us for many years. I think that the challenge for One IT in the next 2 years is going to be really, the Office of the CIO can post a service catalog, okay? But getting people to actually find it, use it, and give feedback, right? Really, you want the users to get in front of the, service providers and let them know whether or not those services are the services we need. We know we're going to be facing budget cuts on this campus. All of us in the academic units certainly want to be in front of knowing what services might be cut, and also want input into which services we feel you got to scale, right, for us. So one question for all of us in this room is, how do we identify and reach out to all of the one-off IT people? I think we've got pretty good representation from departments across the campus. But there are many principal investigators, that work with faculty who are purchasing and supporting IT equipment, who may not know about, for example, some of the deals that that campus has negotiated with our vendors. They may not know about the Berkeley desktop. Security is such a huge, pressing issue for us on this campus. And the whole point of the managed desktop is partly to maintain security and make it as easy as possible. So, one idea that I've had is some of us working as ambassadors and just, trying to get a list of who these people are and pound the pavement and get out there to the departments. But really, it's going to be all of our jobs, in this room to look at the service catalog when it comes out, to give feedback, to engage and participate, and not just complain in our silo that, Central Campus doesn't have the services we need, or, we really, to me, that's the next step for One IT. What do the rest of you think?
I just want to add that for the service catalog, although we started with the 4 sort of bigger central IT groups that Patricia mentioned, our goal and our design of how we're going to be offering the information out of ServiceNow via API is intended to let others, as we sort of get the first version, the V1 up and live, which hopefully will be later this summer, for anyone who has services that they want to expose and make sure they're discoverable for the campus. So, but to the larger question Kevin asked, I would say one of the things I'd love to see One IT do and continue sort of in growing into is helping the CIO, helping all of us by telling our IT story better. And so we launched a campaign, if you will, to try to find more user-focused stories, like the voice of the customer, to sort of help us tell the story better of all the work that you are doing and how it's actually impacting, what is the value being derived by all the people across campus that we serve. And so one of the things I hope to use this community more effectively to do is find those stories. So I encourage you all to bring those stories to me, to anyone on the stage, and really help us collectively tell our story better. I think that will be a great way the One IT community continue to work together.
Well, and I'll add to that and say, this is a bottom-up movement. This is not a top-down movement, and I think that's incredibly powerful for the campus. As we talked earlier this morning, we're all problem solvers. I mean, I really believe that strongly. If that's not a sort of a fundamental focus, you probably didn't like this business and you got out some time ago. So yeah, we're problem solvers, and the university has some pretty serious problems right now. So it seems to me that there's a real opportunity for this community to look at the ways that each of us in our groups and individually and collectively, how can we help solve that problem? How can we get more efficient? How can we help reduce the deficit by reducing our expense? Of course, we all know, demand for IT services is only going one way. It's only going up, and yet we've got this tremendous pressure from the campus. I was going to say leadership, but really it's a campus problem. To try to drive costs down. I mean, this is a daunting challenge, and it's not one that certainly I'm going to solve as a campus CIO or as any one particular group. I think this is something we have to take on collectively. Part of that, by the way, is that we've been trying to focus on how do we provide services that help you all. Okay, for example, the great work that Bill's team's done with the APIs, I think that's a tremendous example, or what we're trying to do with Service Catalog and ServiceNow. So, let's keep that dialogue going. We're not going to know what things will help you necessarily. Please communicate with us. Let us know where we might be able to help out.
I don't have much to add, but I do think that the whole notion of One IT, I was kind of joking before about it being a movement, but it actually is becoming a movement. And so it's not just at Berkeley. There are other universities that are intentionally replicating what we're doing here. And I think what we're really trying to do with One IT is hack the culture and make the culture not about our individual identities in our little teams or in our big teams, but the idea that we're actually all in one gigantic lifeboat together, sort of flip the perspective around and look at us. And Berkeley's going to go through a lot of change in the next few years, and a lot of it's driven by this huge structural deficit, what is it, north of 150 million? So we're not going to put a shine on that. There will be change, but the Chancellor's message around the impact of some of that, and he mentioned positions, going away and stuff, we actually have a lot of natural attrition, but we have to be able to move around within the organization in order to meet the needs of the university. So when you look at it that way, One IT is also us in it together, helping each other so that we can help the faculty and the students, and that's really why we're here.
I have one thing to add. I think I'm looking out right now at One IT, and I just want Larry, turn around just for a second. We're going to do a selfie here.
Oh, geez. Where's your selfie stick?
Wait. Okay, so lean in, Bill.
It's just like Ellen.
I can look at everybody. Let's see.
This is like the Academy Awards.
It is. It's like we're going to press this. One IT. All right, you guys, you're in. Okay.
That is so Angela.
That is so Angela. Yes.
Thank you all. Great responses.
I'll tweet right now.
So I'm going to move on to a new area, a new question. So, and Angela, I think we might ask you for your opinion on this one first. So the Student Information Project is, as we've heard earlier from Dr. Ziri and from Larry, it's in its third year. It is going to, I think, achieve Launch 7 at the end of this calendar year, which will be the end of its initial journey. That effort has taken a significant amount of talent and investment in people and process and technology. And so I'm going to ask 3 questions that the audience proposed, and then ask Angela Free to maybe start the conversation. The questions were, what is the plan to support SIS after Launch 7 is realized later this year? I think October was the time frame I heard for that. Will we be able to budget appropriate levels of investment in ongoing maintenance to keep this thing alive during its life cycle? And will we leverage existing HCM and BFS support teams, given the common PeopleSoft architecture with those programs as well? So Angela, you want to start that conversation, please?
I do, and one of the reasons I didn't comment on One IT as it was going past was I feel like the Student Information Systems project is a microcosm of the One IT experience for this campus. And it has brought together over 200 people right now, and I just want to take a quick moment. If you are on the SIS project or have been on it or attached to it just for a few moments, could you stand just real quick? I just want to show. And thank you all, and thank you. I know, well, okay. We have had and brought together teams, both from the functional side, the technical side, security, areas that we haven't touched in a very long time in a common way to come together and solve some very significant problems. I've been on the campus since 1986. The current Student Information Systems, the core system that is there, was rolled out about the same time, and it's not ever been substantially visited. We've done several iterations on this. The teams that have been supporting it, the legacy teams that have been supporting the existing SIS are amazing, and they've done magic with very, very little investment over time. And we got to a place where the risk was so heavy that it's not just a 3-year journey. The 3-year journey is the implementation part. About a year and a half before that, we started a very serious journey around making the case for change with the executive leadership. And they did really commit and have sustained that commitment over the last 5.5 years. I really have never seen anything like this, where the leaders from every one of the major components on campus, teaching, learning, student affairs, the IST organization, our financial teams, and the Vice Chancellor of Administration and Finance, they all had to make an investment in time, people, and personal cachet. They had to spend their commitment around this, and they've stayed there. There were huge challenges, and we're implementing this system, which is fairly expensive, at one of the most financially strapped periods that I've ever seen on this campus. And the attachment to doing it right and the commitment to making it happen is represented in this room from the technical and functional partners. But I just want to personally thank Larry for his leadership, John Wilton, who left in February, Rosemarie Ray, her predecessor, Aaron Gore, Harry LeGrand, Kathy Koshland, these leaders, plus the academic leadership that we're seeing now from Fiona Doyle as the Dean of the Grad Division, previously Andrew Seri from both the OE office and the Grad Division, and our current favorite academic leader, Bob Jacobson, who just will not leave us alone. He is so committed for us to make this right. And so I know someone said it was effortless. It's not. But the commitment from the leadership about putting the resources at getting the obstacles out of the way is the reason we're on track right now to go live with the original schedule that was charted out almost 4 years ago now when we first were talking about it. We stayed with that. We lost 5 months at the beginning, and we started late, but we are still set to deliver on the original timeline that Larry laid out for Andaluca and I the first month we met with him. I don't know if you recall that. We whiteboarded it out, and we are, I have a picture because I take a picture of everything, as you all know. But we are now set to be done with the original set of functional rollouts. Go Live 7 is set to be delivered to the community beginning of the fall semester. And that was, I think, the question, are we gonna get there, and what happens right after? Well, right after, in the fall, we're still winding down the project, but we will be looking at an upgrade, because we're finishing this work right as PeopleSoft Campus Solutions is upgrading, or has put out an upgrade, and we're looking at a 9.2 upgrade right after that. The way we might move forward as well is something that the leadership has committed to doing, and looking at how we're structured, because one of the things that you may know, this effort has, I think, forever changed at least Student Affairs IT and the Student Affairs organization in terms of the admissions and enrollment space, but it's also touching some of the other teams that are directly affected. The Cal Central team, I just want to really commend the current Cal Central team, both in ETS and those who have attached themselves to the project. We made a strategy proposal at the very beginning of using our student portal that the students had gotten attached to. Post-Sakai, we went into our own development for the portal. And so that team and that tool, and the students are validating this by their usage of the system, have really become, I would say, part of the fabric of how students interact with our systems, tools, and communities. So we made that commitment, and that means that ETS, which has run Cal Central, SAIT are now bonded together forever. So when we're talking about what's next, we're trying to figure out what we look like. And we've done deep work with Bill's team in the API space. I think this project has helped move forward some real substantive problems that we had in terms of the technology availability. And so the API teams have now set up a set of tools that are available. I think we have, do you remember the count, Bill? I think we're up to 80. Is it 80 API?
Yeah, I think it's actually, it might even be north of 100 now.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Prior to
huge.
this project, we had 3, I think. So we're trying to really move through the organization and provide tools using the SIS project as a vehicle to bring kind of some effort and focus and progress to some areas that have been known as a need, but not really been able to make progress on it. And with the leadership, this project moving forward, it's touching the org. So what's going to happen and what we look like next? After this project is done, which even though we finish formally in March of 17, that's when we're set to be done, we have to figure out where we move our people back into, because the orgs are going to be different and they're going to look different. And so what our CIO has done with support from those other executives I mentioned is we've engaged an outside consulting firm to look at best practice across the country for large institutions who've done a campus solutions implementation. We're having them engage our current teams that are actively involved in this, and we're getting some feedback and some ideas around our as-is structure, what might happen and what might be some good models to consider. And so we're starting to look at that with the leadership, and that is actually happening right now. So we're hoping 5 weeks from now we'll have some models to consider. Bill's on that.
Sounds like a design that you're working on.
I'm going to pay him later. Yeah. No, it is an intentional effort to design our services and structures around this in a way that sustains us into the future. And again, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. We don't have plans. I'll just be real honest. We're doing the work. We're heads down on the work. Some of us are going to leave here and have to go back and actually get some stuff done today on the project because it doesn't stop. Let's see, what were the other questions? It was what happens after? Do you want to add anything on the org design?
Sure. So, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough to line up the funding. I've told anybody that would listen to me from virtually the day I walked into the institution that, we can do some tremendous things with the new student system. But, oh, by the way, don't think you're going to save any money with that. And so we know that the cost to support the new system is going to be higher. We don't have the numbers nailed down yet. That's part of the consulting work that Angela referred to. But, universities are incredibly complex places, and the student system is the most complex system we run here, as near as I can tell. So guess what? All that complexity, breeds expense. And the PeopleSoft system is the market leader, state of the art. But again, it's not cheap. So this will be a challenge. But I want to underscore what Angela said, and that we've had from day one, we've had very strong executive support. And as Angela knows all too well, from almost day one, we said, well, how are we going to pay for this? Well, we'll figure this out, but keep going, And quite literally, that was the executive response when, we still haven't figured it out, but keep going. So we've had strong executive support for this thing, and we know we're going to figure it out. But it's going to be a challenge in this current environment, no question about that.
The one thing I would just add into the keep going, that is true. They said we're not quite sure how we're going to figure out the funding for this very large effort. However, the difference is it's not just crossing our fingers. What's happened, and I think someone said transparency, you were talking about that when I walked in, I think doing this work in the bright light of a structure in which the leadership is asking for the bad news first, and they're making the changes, and they might not like it. I will tell you, I'm not a very popular person when they see me coming. It's usually bad news. And I don't mean that like it's not all bad. It's just hard. What makes us complex is not the systems. It's our people, and it's our processes, and it's our communities that are so fractured. So what's important in this space is a transparent process for making decisions around very big efforts and people. And I will just say that the governance part of it, and I want to commend Liz on really trying to drive at governance, the only way this has moved forward for this project in particular, there's a really strong project governance that has to translate into the future somehow, and we're working with Liz in anchoring that. And so we need our faculty and our students to be at the center of everything we do. I just need to say that over and over, and I know people get a little frustrated when I don't also say, and staff, because staff really do make this work. But I just want to say, as a staff person, I'm here to support the students and the faculty and the educational mission of this campus. And bringing in our academic leadership right now, we have 3 past academic senate chairs really personally involved in this project. And we have to find a way to put those core experience and services we provide the community and the world, serving our students and faculty at the center with a bright light on how we're spending our money and time. And I think that's been happening, and it's great to see it in person. I hope it starts translating to the rest of the work we do. And I mean, in every area. I mean, student information systems should be really, really considered one of the core enterprise institutional services that are provided. And we're just going to have to keep the implementation tight, stay on time, but it's an ongoing lifetime investment in doing the right thing and serving other departments that are doing development that are right at that special space of differentiating our services, like the professional schools. That's why you see Kevin and Patricia up here. The professional schools and our graduate community, we are a research institution. We've got to figure that out. So anyway, I have a soapbox. I carry it around with me all the time. So let me know if you have any other things you'd like me to comment on. Okay, sorry.
Thank you all. So I think I heard 3 things. One, the One IT community and some user-centered design practices, not unlike what Jessi spoke about this morning, are important elements of this project going forward. We have incredible executive level support at a cabinet level and beyond. And we're building a plan for how we're going to continue to evolve and iterate on this big investment going forward. Yeah?
There's one important part. Just because Larry didn't mention, I thought you were going to. We've chosen a PeopleSoft product, and we have a great investment in our current PeopleSoft environment with our financial team, BFS. I know that
HCM.
No, I was going to say the other one, the one I don't like to say. UC Path is coming, but that's not here yet. So we have a real investment in talent in the PeopleSoft environment, and really great developers and system administrators, and we're bringing more of that effort through this project with this student information systems piece. It is really hard to compete in the PeopleSoft space. The recruiting there nationally is difficult. We're having a difficult time filling these positions. JR has wrestled with this her whole time here. And I just want to say it's a strategy we're going to have to figure out. I'd love to see us do more with students in that space, but we're definitely going to leverage the existing teams and think across the platforms. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to another question. So Google Apps for Education, B Courses, the Savio Research Cluster, and the Student Information System are all great examples of some of the services that we provide that support the teaching and learning missions and research missions of this campus. So Bill, I'm going to ask you to take the lead on this question. What is our service strategy, and how can people in the audience get involved with the process of defining and continuously improving the technology services that we provide to these campus audiences?
Great. Well, thank you, Kevin. So when I think about all of those services, and service strategy is actually like a technical component of ITIL, so I won't speak about it that way, but more in what our philosophy...
Don't get technical with us. We don't get technical. Just...
No. Well, I thought everybody had foundations training.
Keep going.
Anyway, so when I think about all of these services and what they all have in common, and one of the mantras really of a lot of us in IT has been, we are there to serve the needs of faculty and students around teaching and research. That's job number 1. That's sort of our mission and why we're here along with community service. but we also have to have really effective administration. And if you look at the balance sheet, a lot of dollars get spent on administration, like really a lot of dollars as a percentage. And so one of the things that we're really striving to do is leverage the dollars that we invest in running the business side of the university to deliver a dividend to teaching and research. So that's one underpinning philosophy. I think another one is, how can we minimize the friction of us in delivering those services so that we can more directly bring them out so that they can do what they're intended to do? So like, for example, Google Apps for Education, when we first launched it, there was a lot of bureaucratic rules about things we could and couldn't turn on. And frankly, no one understood the minutia of the complexity of why Regental rule number whatever, they really just saw it as, IT is really kind of getting in the way here. And our philosophy is to try to get IT out of the way. So today we've worked out an agreement that lets us turn on pretty much all of the Google services and make them directly available so that people like faculty can experiment with using them in the classroom, so that they can be integrated into things like B courses. We're also sort of operating in a multipolar world of IT. So the idea that everything's in our data center and as various sort of packages we buy that are governed in a particular way is really, that's kind of got blown out of the water, really probably dating to like 2008, 2007 and 8, when kind of Amazon was just on, kind of taking off, and the first iPhones were coming out. That trend towards consumerization of IT has just put a massive blowtorch of pressure on IT, and on you probably.
Well, thank you.
And so what we're trying to do is make things available to people in the most cost-effective way, and we are really questioning sort of everything that we do around that. And if I had to hold up a single effort in IT around, and that's why design is so important. I mean, Larry's put everybody, I think all the director team and a lot of the managers through customer service training just so we can be more empathetic, with our users. So that was like step one. We're trying to do better communication, Rita, and like all the outreach in the One IT community. And I think design is another pivotal one, because now before we can start communicating broadly, we should really step back and think about why we're doing what we're doing and how what we're doing, every dollar counts right now. So the ROI model about like what we're going to spend and the dividend that it produces for research and teaching is really super critical. I'll just stop there because I could just keep going.
I'm just going to focus on one more part of the question. So how do these people get involved in helping you and the rest of the folks on the panel with some of the decisions around those approaches?
Oh, this is actually a great question. So like a perfect example of this is, and actually I'll use a Google example, although it's a design pattern we're now repeating. The Haas School, as you all know, has a very high standard for the service that they provide for the Haas students. Very demanding faculty, very, top tier, cutting edge expectations. And, our teams are staffed very, very leanly. We can't necessarily provide, we provide service to everybody on the whole campus, but we're not funded to necessarily provide the white glove experience that Haas expects. So as we thought about that, we were becoming a bottleneck. And so we identified this way that we could partner with Haas. So Haas can have a person or two people, or however many they want really, and that they can afford, who are trained in how our services run and can matrix when they need to become a part of the Be Connected team to help provide a very differentiated level of service for Haas. And actually at the IT Summit 2 years ago, someone came up to me and said, we have another service, the document workflow ImageNow service, and they said, we want to be onboarded into ImageNow, we need to do it. And I said, well, we have a queue, we have a very small team. And they said, let's go talk to Larry. You may not remember this, but they said, you need to get more funding and more people on Bill's team so that I can get onboarded. And Larry laughed. And what actually came out of that conversation at this summit...
I hope this has a nice ending.
It does. And so, and I think that the initial position of the person was, well, then we're going to have to go stand up our own. And so it was like, well, you must have money and people. And what that really evolved into was a model that we're now doing with ImageNow, where if there's a unit that needs something and they have people, or they have money, we can use that talent and help them use our common service, but all of the service providing doesn't have to come from the center. And so that's what I sort of mean by the peer-to-peer. We have common standards, but it doesn't mean everything's provided from the Death Star of, central IT. It can be provided from the wider university. So that, I think that design pattern, I can own it.
Would anyone else like to chime in here on the heels of the Death Star? Bill, what's your resume look like? Is it up to date?
It's on
obviously
LinkedIn.
I can't top that, but I do want to say, and just repeat something said a few minutes ago. This is only going to work if we're doing this as a community, and we are not going, we in the center, if you will, certainly within IS&T, we got some very great, talented, smart, capable people, but we're not going to get all this, just out of the air. We need help. We need input. We need the feedback from you all to help us figure out, in our increasingly, I should say decreasingly, fewer and fewer resources that we've got, we've simply got to ruthlessly prioritize, and I think I've used that phrase in front of this group before, and make sure that we're investing the limited resources in the most effective way for the broader community. We want to globally optimize as much as possible. So again, just to encourage all of you to, as you have thoughts or ideas, suggestions, don't sit there and grumble to yourself. Come and talk to us.
Yes, come and grumble to us.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Thanks, guys. That was a good answer, or several good answers. So one of the benefits of being in academia, as Jessi mentioned a little bit earlier, is transparency, and we can ask really tough questions and get good answers. So I'm going to start to tone the questions a little bit tougher. Chancellor Dirks recently communicated his vision, his opinion that campus shared services has failed to meet its cost and service objectives. And seemingly in the same sentence, he also stated that CSS IT has been a pretty big success. And so I'm going to start maybe by asking Larry this question. What's going on with CSS IT, and how should we interpret the Chancellor's recent messages?
What's the next question? Well, you weren't kidding when you said you're going to ask the tough questions. I don't have the perfect answer to this. Obviously we're in a time of transition. I think you all have seen what the Chancellor has said. And I guess at the risk of telling tales out of school, I did have a chance to talk with Peggy Houston recently and asked her what she was doing with all this, and she said, well, to be candid, there's still a lot of questions. Not all the questions have been answered, but she's doing what, in my mind, makes perfect and the best sense, which is, at the end of the day, the business processes are what the business processes are. Whoever does them, however they gets done, wherever they're located. So, job one has been, and I think certainly from Peggy's perspective, will continue to be, how do we make those business processes as efficient and effective as possible? Now, it's not quick, it's not easy, but for example, one of the things that we've been working on in partnership with CSIST, I should say, has been working in partnership with CSS is how do we build on that ServiceNow implementation that I briefly referred to earlier? How do we build on that and use that to leverage improving efficiency and effectiveness? And they've got some really terrific ideas. Turns out there's a great a workflow capability within that system, and we believe that there's a tremendous opportunity to leverage that to improve the HR side of it in particular. So you'll hear, I think there's been some early rollouts on that. There's more planned over the next 9 to 12 months. So maybe that's a long-winded way of not answering the question, but there's still a lot of there's still a lot of details to work out here. I think I see Jerry Urardi back over there, who is the director of CSSIT, and I can I'll tell you all what I've heard, and I've told Jerry as well. I've been doing sort of another round of leadership tier interviews, just basically trying to get the pulse of our senior leadership. And person after person, particularly at the dean level, has volunteered that the CSSIT model is actually working quite well. And I think that's a tribute to Jerry and his team and their leadership. And obviously, we want to continue to build on that. So, there's still questions. I don't have all the answers. If somebody out here feels they have the answer, please speak up. Jerry, good. You saved me.
It is on? Hello, yes. Okay, so just a brief comment, because CSSIT is alive and well. And yes, thank you. And in part, I just want to say, in part, that's due to our partnerships with everybody in this room almost. So, we talk about the One IT event, and to me, in CSSIT, we couldn't get where we are today if it wasn't for these partnerships. And it's been a long journey. In the beginning, we had a lot of resistors on campus. We've made a lot of changes in our organization. We've been very fluid in meeting the needs of the user. And I love this. I hope we keep this slide up all day, right? Because it's all about the end user. Who is that person that we're actually doing the work for? But because CSSIT has, over the past 3 years, become this entity that is real, and our customers seem to be pretty well satisfied, we're moving towards the implementation of service management on campus. Liz is heading that effort up for us. I'm one of the committee members. And in order for us to get there, we need an organization running the front end, which is CSSIT. So kind of in answer to the question, even though Larry kind of avoided it, we are alive and well, and I believe that we will continue to be alive and well for the years moving forward. And depending on where we report to and how we report to that person, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is the focus of our customers and how we provide that service for them. So it's the students, the faculty, and the staff that are the key focus for us moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Larry. Okay, I'm going to go pivot a little bit and ask another kind of tough question, but I think we'll get some different responses. So we heard earlier that the CalAnswers Staff Retirement Metric Project received a Chancellor's Award, and that's a fantastic achievement for them. And that award was around their effort to address the issues surrounding Berkeley's aging workforce. I can remember one of the first big meetings I came to here at Berkeley in IT. I looked around and I thought, I've never been in an IT organization as mature as ours. I'm gray-haired too, I can say that. So there are 3 questions, and I'm going to ask Liz to sort of start the dialogue on this one. I'll ask 3 questions, and then we'll see where we go with it. The first is, what are we doing to support and invest in technology talent here at Berkeley? The second is, how will we attract and retain millennials to our workforce? And the third is, what are the evolving behavioral expectations for technology professionals here at Berkeley?
Thanks, Kevin. And before I move into answering my questions, I do want to give props again to the CalAnswers Staff Retirement Metrics Project team. I like to think that I was one of the thorns, probably one of the bigger thorns, in the side of the folks who ended up doing this work, because every year for probably the past 8 years, I would ask for a big report out of HR just about our workforce and what the population attributes looked like. So I was extremely pleased to have this at my fingertips now, or most of what I need at my fingertips. So I'll just, for those of you who haven't looked at the report, it's pretty interesting, and I'll give you a couple of stats from it. And these are stats as of October 2015. So we have a total IT workforce of 959 people. Of those, retirement eligible with a high likelihood of retirement, there's a 6%. We have 6% of those of folks who fall into that category. Retirement eligible with a low likelihood, 57%. So we have 63% of our workforce is eligible to retire, which is a pretty interesting statistic. It certainly is backed up by Kevin's observation. But another interesting statistic, I think, is
I'm ready.
that... What was that?
I'm ready.
Raise your hand. So another interesting thing, though, is even with that statistic, a third of our IT workforce has fewer than 5 years of service credit, and 93% of those are under 60. So there's a lot of interesting data you can get from looking at this this dashboard and slicing it and dicing it in different ways. And I think one of the challenges with addressing some of the succession planning, I think in general on campus we haven't, in any job field, there's not been a particularly effective effort with succession planning. I think IT is not alone in being an older, skewing workforce. And part of that's because of our distributed nature and a variety of other factors. But it is something that I think we need to keep thinking about. But to answer, so I don't have a good answer, honestly, to the succession planning question, and I'm happy to have people who are interested in talking about and brainstorming about that come and contact me. What I do think we're doing, which may sort of help us bend the curve or move people farther out and away from immediately retiring, even if they're eligible, is some of the investment in technology talent and in the community. And one of the things I will say in support of the One IT program is that I think that this One IT program has made that a lot more possible. So, for instance, the skills development and the workshops that we've been doing over the past couple of years for ITIL training and customer service training and some other things, I think have been part of us helping focus where we collectively think we need our workforce skills to be going, and helping to offer that training and offering that through various One IT channels has been effective. Another thing that I think will become more widespread as a function of One IT is some great work that they've been doing in Student Affairs IT under the leadership of James Dudek and Paul Robles around workforce strategy. And I don't know if any of you have seen the work that they've done. I know James has done a number of presentations, and in fact, I think he and Paul will be presenting again this afternoon at 3. I can't remember the location, but it should be on the sheet, about that work. And it's been a multi-year effort, but it seems like it's been very much paying off recently. And that is work that now Educational Technology Services, IST, CSSIT is all leveraging and starting to, we're in various stages of sort of implementing this. But I think as we continue with that work, this may be a model that can be adopted more broadly, which will be, I think, a great opportunity to continue to really support the talent and retain the talent that we have here by creating opportunities. Another thing I know that has been done more locally, and I think one of the things we've talked about as a leadership team is how can we maybe broaden this, is sort of an internship program for folks where, we sort of the leaders in organizations identify opportunities where, that we have where we are planning to hire or have need and maybe can't hire. And then matching that up with folks in units who may be looking for opportunities or chances to try something new on a short-term basis. So that's still really in the ideation stage, but that's something we've been talking about. I would also like to take this opportunity to do a plug for the mentorship program, because a couple of years ago we talked seriously about starting an IT-focused mentorship program, but we ended up deciding, well, campus already has one, so let's not recreate the wheel. But I think one of the things we've been trying to do is really push IT folks, both on the mentor and the mentee side, to get involved to help create that relationship and build those networks. And in general, though, I want to say I welcome feedback. If people have ideas, please bring them over. Contact me. And then in terms, I think you had one more question, Paul. Was it about?
Can I add?
Oh, yeah, please.
One of the things I just really want us to, all of us, think about, and it's been successful in some areas and to greater and less degree, some of the more technical areas haven't really tapped into this. We really are sitting right next to and working every day with one of the largest workforce development programs in the world called the UC Berkeley Student Body. And we have leadership programs for students and student employment opportunities that are difficult to navigate, because it's hard to rely on a student who's actually here to get a degree. But in Student Affairs IT and ETS, where we're working with and leveraging students in the technology space, we've seen really, really good outcomes, and we have many of the students who actually came through our programs here who've chosen to stay. I mean, we have some very senior technical people now who started with residential computing back in the early 2000s. And so I just want to amplify that and find a way to make that much more structured wherever we possibly can and share that information. So I know Anne-Marie Richard is here somewhere. Stand up, Anne-Marie Richard, wherever you are. Okay, if anyone wants to talk about student leadership programs, go find Anne-Marie Richard. And we've actually amplified that through involving students in governance and decisions with some recent changes. So that's another topic. But I think that's an untapped resource in the technology space, the deeper technology space that I'd like us all to explore.
Well, and I think that actually provides a nice tie to the question that Kevin had asked about millennials. And I don't consider myself an expert in that. I know that there's a lot of literature out there about how millennials in the workforce differ from probably most of the people you see up here on the stage in terms of expectations and understanding of how a career path works. Even
what is that?
I don't know, you tell me. So there's attributes that are frequently cited, like flexible work schedule, relaxed environment, availability of
older people don't really want that. Just saying.
That's true, yes. Availability of education and training, coaching and mentorship, clarity about identification of career paths, and I do think that's something that we need to try to do a better job of here on this campus is, Career Compass, almost 10 years ago now, I guess, was supposed to help with that, but I'm not sure how effective that is, so I think that's an area that we could potentially focus on. But actually, I'm going to turn the question back to Angela, because with her student workforce, she's actually working with the millennials, so probably she has a better answer than I.
Oh, I wouldn't say that necessarily, but I do think the student leadership experience where you're working with students, where you're letting them test out what it's like to be in a workforce and really contribute to meaningful problems that you're trying to solve. Someone said we're problem solving. We are. And the students, in the Student Affairs IT organization, it was part of our organizational commitment, vision, and practice. So at first, we were just trying to work its way into our work, model some good behavior, have students engage, because we thought it was a good way to get the voice. I will just tell you, over the last 25 years, it is the only way I think I ever want to work. And so on the SIS project, we've actually had students and student employees attached to all of the technical teams, especially in the design space. You're going to see more of that. I want to put a plug in for the afternoon presentation that Bernie and Ben and the team are doing. Students have been involved in designing what the Cal Central set of tools look like. And this is not because, we're looking for, this is going to sound tacky, but cheap labor, because a lot of people, and you might be one of those people in the room that think student workers are cheap labor. They're basically, we're getting the best deal on the planet, because these are students who are going to be graduating in less than 2 or 3 years, who are going to be like leaders of industry in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. I mean, we see this happen, and they're testing their ideas out with us. We have this great opportunity to do that. And so the more you can help support them in their journey and exploring those things and set up within a structure, controlling for risk. I know Kate Riley and others are here. They want to make sure I'm not messing things up. But I think there's concern about having students who might not have good practices, they're young. Oh, they're youngsters. They're going to do something untoward with data. Oh my God, they want their data, and they want it now. And Larry, when he first came, I just want to tell more tales about you. When he first came, he says the students aren't going to want to participate in the SIS project or that analysis because their students they just want us to take care of that. Oh my God, the Student Technology Council leadership basically came with pitchforks and demanded that they have a special session from the vendors
That was a metaphor.
I'm not sure. I think they're, but the students drove and helped set the requirements for our vendor product in a very senior way. So they're test driving. They are millennials. They are really wanting access to their data. They believe this is their institution, and I think we can help make that marriage a happy one by bringing them into the mix. Sorry, I talked too long.
I wanted to add a couple thoughts and build on what Angela was saying, because Angela, I think, so millennials are people like what, between 1980 and 2000, that's the rough benchmark. Yeah, and Time magazine said 1980 as they simplified it because we wouldn't be able to know that it was 1970, whatever. But so Angela's only 3 years away from the first post-millennial generation coming into the Student Technology Council. I don't know what they're called. But so, in other words, then people that are in our workforce that are under 40 and under, rounded numbers, are millennials. And so I was playing with Cal Answers, which is awesome. How many of you have used Cal Answers, like ever logged in? Because there's amazing, really transparent data that you can get, and I love data. So 40% of our workforce is under 40. So we actually have a really robust millennial engagement in terms of the workforce. And when I looked at the trend over time, we've added 1,000 millennials, which is like 10% of the workforce, in terms of just new positions, since 2011. And we have basically a static group that's 50 and older, and where we're losing people is in mid-40s. So I think that's another interesting challenge that we think about. And anyway, so I encourage you to log in and look at Cal Answers. But when I got hired here, which is more than 10 years ago, I am not a millennial, I was trying to make some changes, and some of the people who had been here a while said, that guy, he's just a kid. I was like 33. And so I think every older, generation looking down on the other generations, I think my generation got dissed the way people talk about the millennials, and probably the baby boomers faced the same thing. So it's more about how inclusive and how we operate the workforce to incorporate all these different perspectives. Because the other myth is what I was joking about before, which is the things that millennials want are actually, I bet, the things that all of you want that aren't millennials. So I think just by being Berkeley, we will be attractive to millennials.
And I know we've gone on this a while, but I really want to underscore what Bill just said. I mean, I think, let's be candid. Not many people come to higher education to maximize their earning potential, okay? Having said that, though, I think, I've been a CIO for a number of years at different institutions, and I think one of the things we have to do as IT managers is we have to be more attentive and more actively manage salaries and positions for our careers, for our best people in particular. And I think that is something that, we can't just depend on altruism. I mean, there's great cachet to coming to Berkeley. Heck, that's one of the reasons I'm here. I mean, you get to think, you think in terms of what we do. You help in some small way. We all help train the next set of leaders for the world, really. Or, my favorite example is, you look at what the research engine does here. How many of you all know about CRISPR, the gene editing tool? Oh my God, that's magic, folks. Absolute magic. And that's right here at Berkeley. Magic. And, I'm not smart enough to do stuff like that, but, even in some small way, if we can help our brilliant faculty create things like that, that's a life-changing situation.
And just to be clear, if you're from the business press, it was invented here first.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to do one more question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. So if you've got some of those tough questions for Larry and the rest of the panel, please get ready to grab a mic and ask them. So the last question is all about kind of where are we going? We've given a little bit of thought to some of these topics already: MOOCs, disruptive technology, the DevOps phenomenon, an aging workforce, the cloud, consumerization of IT, social networking, ITIL and ITSM, security threat of the week, agile, I could go on and on. There's a lot going on in the world that we all inhabit. And so the real question, I'm going to start with Larry, is what are the next one or two big things for technology here at Berkeley? If you want to leave us all with just a thought on kind of, here's my crystal ball, here's what we should be thinking about as we go off into the world after today.
Sure.
What are those one or two things?
It's a great topic and a good one to wrap up, at least this formal side. So you know how we technology people are, right? You ask technology people, you ask 10 technology people a question, you'll get 15 different answers. So I'm sure you'll see a spectrum of responses here. My answer to that is, we are paying a lot of attention right now to cloud-based solutions. This is something that's not new. It's not new yesterday or the day before or the week before. But one of the things I've seen, I get an opportunity to compare notes with my counterparts at top universities around the country. And what I've seen over the last couple of years in particular, there's been a real stampede might be too harsh of a word, but it's been a huge movement and shift. People are pivoting to the cloud, and I think this is something that we've asked Bill and others through the governance structure in particular. Let's try to get more articulate about what a good cloud strategy can be, should be here at Berkeley. So I think that's one key piece. And then the other piece is maybe a little more focused, but I also think it's very important. One of the things that I've been struck with in the time that I've been here is, frankly, how little Berkeley has done with creating blended courses for our students. And a blended course is a course that leverages the ability to provide online content and interaction with face-to-face classroom time. And the theory there being is that there are things that are best done face-to-face. There are things that are best done and more efficiently done in an online arena. Berkeley's way behind the curve on this, and I say that to anybody who will listen to me. But the interesting thing on that is the research record on it is very clear. This is a much more efficient and frankly more effective way to deliver instruction, particularly undergraduate instruction. So that's something I think that we should be trying to move ahead here at Berkeley.
Thank you, Larry. Any other comments, other folks on the panel? Crystal balls?
That was a long list of new stuff coming our way. And I think part of one of the things that Jessi talked about was understanding what our community is trying to do. And so one of the things that I've sort of put out as a three-prong agenda that I'm hoping to achieve as the CTO, one is about architectural planning and sort of getting in front of some things and figuring out how to make better decisions, and also more deeply engaging technologists directly on up the leadership chain so that we can get the voice of technologists heard by senior executives so that we can operate more effectively and strategically. And then the third pillar is around sort of our cloud strategy, and you'll be hearing more about that. But the second big pillar is really about design. And it is because we really have to start with all of these. If we let the technology and the waves of hype and innovation and venture capital drive our agenda, then we're really owned, in the sort of security sense of that word. And so really what we need to do is work more closely with our faculty and engage more deeply with our students and sort of figure out how that will drive things. And then a lot of the technology strategy, when we say cloud, we're really just talking about a layer of abstraction around where we get our computing. And our ability to be nimble in how we do that, that will allow us to move faster to serve the aims of the university.
I'd like to just add something that might be a little unpopular, because we talk a lot about the shiny new object or what's coming, and I know that's the question, but I think we at Berkeley really have to get good at the basics. We have to get good at identifying, running, funding, and sustaining the fundamentals, and really have that be the major focus so that the institution can rely on us in a way that is, I would say it hasn't in the past. And I think this community, this One IT community, the way we're bringing things together and surfacing issues amongst ourselves to try to solve these problems needs to be something that we really invest in every day, so that we can have 80%, 90% of everything just reliably well run and counted on, that we get credibility, so that when we want to differentiate in that 10 to 20% of specialization, where we want that high touch, where we need to have Berkeley stand out in front of the rest of the institutions across the world, we need to free our focus up so that that's where we're directing our best effort. And I just want to say that out loud, because I know it's not popular. Everyone wants to kind of like, oh, I can just go get this new app, or this is coming. And I think the students and the faculty should drive us toward those priorities in terms of identifying what they are. It's happening every day in our private lives. So I just want to say that. And I think users at the center of the design, including designing our governance. I mean, Liz is trying to do that with the leadership and with partners in the academic side of the house to make sure that we're focusing on the right things. I just want to say that the unpopular spot of the discipline of having a good technology budget, a good technology investment, recruiting, for me, those are sexy. Those are awesome. Let's do that.
Amen.
Great, thank you. So let's open it up to some questions from the audience. Anyone have a question they want to ask the panel? Any topic?
For Larry, of course.
Well, while we're waiting for hands to be raised, I'm just going to say one more thing, which isn't really technology per se. I'm a broken record here, is that I think part of our success in the future is going to depend on our ability to tell our story effectively, tell the story of the value we bring to this campus every day. So, and for that, we need every one of you to help us do that. So bring your stories.
Questions? Back left.
Hi, we heard a good story from Bill there about doing some kind of creative way of getting some work done by, having some Haas team work with the Be Connected team to actually make something happen. And I think that's clear that we have to find some creative ways to partner. But administratively, it's really hard to make that happen on a kind of transactional basis here. Some of that kind of transactional side gets in the way. As we work with researchers, we're trying to come up with new ways to fund work so that we run systems and faculty, PIs buy into those systems so that they can do the things that they can do on a grant. But when I talk to other UC campuses and other campuses around the country, it seems like that kind of creative way of funding work is easier to do than it is here. And I'm wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, I guess, Chris, can you give a little bit more detail about what the...
That's for Kevin.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm kidding.
Who did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I just want to understand your question a little better, Chris. Is it the sort of moving money around to... I don't quite understand what are the challenges that you're talking about.
I think I've just seen that we are doing some very kind of creative, good partnerships in terms of actually paying for work to be done by having staff from one group work with staff in another group. That's a simple example. Sometimes that's really hard to do when we go to try to make that arrangement through HR or even kind of the financial side of it. It can be quite challenging. And maybe this is something that we see a little bit lower down in the organization.
I can take an initial stab at that. I mean, at the risk of sort of stating the obvious, I mean, I think that's in fact one of the things that the One IT movement can help with. I mean, people talk a lot about, we need to break down the silos and all that, but the truth is that's the way we're organized. It's the way every research university is organized. And, not to get too far afield, but one of the things that I've certainly come to in my career is, it's not an accident that the research institutions are so siloed. I mean, the way I've thought about it is, our most successful faculty are highly entrepreneurial, they're highly independent, and in fact, that is what makes them successful. So it's not surprising to me to recognize, well, that kind of thinking doesn't stop at the metaphorical lab door. So, there is a tendency, and this has been certainly true at every one of the 4 institutions I've worked for, is there's been a tendency to just, blinders on, I'm going to solve this problem myself, okay? I don't want any help, okay? It's not just I don't need any help, I don't want any help, And in fact, when help is offered, it can get people to bristle. At any rate, I think that's where we can help each other. I don't think there's going to be any fundamental restructuring of the IT community. I don't anticipate we'll see that, but I think.
I'm going to tweet that.
Like revealed truth or something?
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen this at 4 different institutions. There's reasons why things work the way they do, but I think we can work across the organizational lines. We do. In fact, you look at the examples I was picking out in my talk an hour ago or so. I mean, these are examples of different entities who are just, purposely working across the organizational boundaries and saying, let's figure out the best way to do this. Not worry about, who reports to whom, and even worry about who manages the budget. That it's sort of a coalition of the willing. Is that the most efficient way to get things done? No. But guess what? Research universities were never designed to be efficient. They were designed to be effective. And you look at the history here at Berkeley, it's pretty darn successful. So we can, that's my answer, is I think we have opportunities to just, sort of ignore or blur, if you will, the formal organizational ties and do what's best for the institution.
I just wanted to say that I think a great opportunity that exists is with getting more information to deans about, in the research area, about what's available when they're recruiting faculty. Because once faculty get here and they've already bought their own equipment or they often negotiate. They want their own server, they want this, they want that. And the deans, they don't know whether we have a high computing a cluster available for them. They're not going to think of that. They're just trying to recruit the individual. Sure, whatever you want. So, and I don't think there's been a huge push to educate deans about what they might, how they might structure an offer for, in terms of research. And I think that's a great place where, we might explore opportunities with the deans.
Yeah, Kristen, getting back to your original specific question, I think part of the answer is, or part of the challenge is that, again, we're so decentralized. We all have different processes, even within this, to do the same HR stuff. Sometimes we've got different levels of skill and different levels of staffing and resource within each function. And you're talking mainly about the HR and the financial functions, I think, embedded in your question. So that is challenging, and that may be what differentiates us from even the other UC campuses. We're just that much less consistent in our processes, which is something, as Larry talked about earlier, I think shared services is really trying to tackle. But I will say that I believe there is opportunity as we look at the IT funding model, which is something that's sort of on our horizon longer term. We don't have a rationalized funding model for IT on this campus, and there's just lots of crazy one-off schemes for paying for stuff that we, and the CFO has agreed that we would like to address in the next couple of years. So that may also be an opportunity to, raise some of the challenges that you're experiencing of how can we be more nimble in working with each other if the funding and the HR processes are really what's holding us back. So
I would say also that there's levels of complexity. So you can start simple, like sharing an employee between two teams where the managers agree or their directors agree is okay. When you start moving money around or making more deep structural things, that's different. But in the Haas example, what we simply did was identify the technical controls and education that someone would need to have to do the work on that team and make sure that that was protected and in place. But there was no HR element. It was simply a work assignment from the people from the Haas side of it that allowed them to work with the team on the other side. So it will really, it's being Berkeley, there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to your question, but we can keep it simple.
Thanks, Chris. Other questions out there in the audience?
Hi.
I think Zane's over on the left.
Okay. Can you hear me? So this is lightweight, particularly compared to the last statements. But several times today, people have talked about, we want to hear your stories, we want to hear your stories, and we've heard that over the years as well, and it's really important. So a lightweight suggestion for getting stories at these events, in addition to a photo booth, can we have an audio booth? And people can just go in and tell their stories. And in our new websites and so forth that we're developing, can we have a little button to click in which we can record our stories? Because sometimes it's easier to tell than to write. And you can get the emotion that way as well. So lightweight's suggestion for getting stories. Thanks.
Great idea, Marlita.
Hi, I've been thinking a lot about life cycle these days, and it's kind of 4 buckets that have emerged. There's experimental and research kinds of things where, like Jessi's slide was talking about prototyping. It's not ready for prime time. And then there's this productizing stage where it's ready, but it may be a real differentiator because it's new, it's the shiny object. And then the enterprise level where, okay, now it's reproducible. It's not really a differentiator anymore, and it's scalable. And then the commodity. So it's like air, it's everywhere. You can get it from anywhere. So looking at the service catalog, could you provide some insights into your design thinking for supporting a life cycle? And then what are your careabouts as far as determining where each of those services fit across the life cycle?
I say we make a committee and we can put Zane on it to help start figuring that out.
I think, Zane, our first goal was to just make a place where things are more discoverable. So that's a very thoughtful question. I will honestly say I don't know that we took the approach of thinking about it that way. But what we're calling, what hopefully is going to be out by the end of August, is a version 1, right? It's just a starting point. And so I think as we mature in our ability to, display our services, I think that may be an attribute or some quality that we might want to take into account as we expose them. So thanks for the suggestion.
I do think, in all seriousness, that once we have that, you can't manage what you can't measure, and you can't measure things when you don't even have a list of what they are. So step 1 is getting the service catalog up and actually having that finite set, and then the next step is going to be to revisit what are the services we offer, what do they cost, what's the adoption, what's the satisfaction with those services, and iterate over that over time. And that's going to be literally, that's a multi-year answer to that question.
It will be a living thing, our service catalog.
Great.
Hi, you good? Is this working? Yeah. Okay. Hi, this is Rich. You know me. Okay, so I just wanted to say, I heard 3 distinct things from Larry, Bill, and Angela, and I just wanted to really emphasize those because I think they're really big. And one of what Larry's talking about is online research university and the cloud. And what Bill mentioned is new things are coming and we have to percolate ideas up to the top. And what I heard from Angela is reliability and fundamentals. And I would just like to ask 3 questions based on that. One is, but I'm just going to get down to 1. How many people here have used Apache Spark? Okay, that's cloud and new. Okay, and then how many people here have used agile methods? Okay, how many people have been to a class on agile methods here? Great. Okay, I guess that's my main question. And then the other question is, can we partner with universities that are doing online education at the IT level and find out what it is that makes that work?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand that last piece. You mean for providing technical training, or are you really talking about the university curriculum?
What's the IT plan for supporting inverted classroom structure and the things that Arizona State and UC Irvine are doing?
Well, okay, I'll take an initial stab, but I guess the overall answer is we're trying to figure that out. Having said that, one of the things that I've been working on with an ad hoc committee the last few months is, trying to take a strictly a financial view to this. I mean, the rationale, the effectiveness argument, I mean, that's settled, okay? We're done talking about, or at least we should be done talking about whether or not blended courses work. We know they work. In fact, we know they work in many cases better than strictly traditional face-to-face courses. But we're still not doing it here in Berkeley, and I can't speak to all the organizational issues, but there's obviously a budget piece of that. I mean, expecting faculty to just sort of, jump off the metaphorical ledge without adequate support is unrealistic. So that's one of the key things from my viewpoint that's needed, is we need to find a way to build an expanded faculty support network so we can help faculty understand the concepts, but also understand the nuts and bolts. How do you do this thing and how do you make it work? So I think that's a key piece. Now, the thing that I was mentioning is, this is still not yet determined, but this ad hoc group that I've been working with, we've been looking at it from a standpoint of, if you look at what does it cost to deliver face-to-face instruction in a traditional classroom to a single student. Looking at the life cycle cost, the cost to build the classroom, the cost to maintain the classroom, the cost to refresh the classroom. What does that translate into? X dollars per semester per student, or per year per student. And then how does that compare to a blended course? And we've tried to take a fairly conservative view on blended, where you would replace one face-to-face hour in a traditional 3-credit course per week with online, still leaving 2 face-to-face. At any rate, I realize I'm getting into the weeds here, but the initial numbers we looked at are actually pretty stark. The difference. I mean, it's not just a little bit. It's not 25%. It's 300%. I mean, it's a dramatic difference. So that's an active thing that's underway right now, and if we can bring this to closure in the next few weeks, then I want to take this forward. And the way I think about it is, this is a way to bend the curve down on instruction here at the university. I mean, if you want to look at ways to address longer term the structural deficit for the university, finding a way to reduce the cost of instruction without obviously, impacting in a negative way the quality of that instruction, that could be huge. Stay tuned.
Great question. I think we have a question up front.
I'm going to jump in. One of the concerns of business units of sort of taking down some of the silos, and this is going back to Bill's statement about working with Haas, is the fear of losing control and the fear of sort of taking the good with the bad, or the bad with the good, I guess. And so maybe using Haas as an example, how granular can a department's engagement be with centralized services, where there might be a desire to use some but not all, and there might be a real business case for not completely adopting the whole package?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, and one that I think we lose sight of, and even in a lot of the OE kind of discussions, there was a lot of talk in our planning around 80-20, or even maybe 90-10, but then I think it's easy for some of the central organizations to forget that we actually allocated 20% for differentiation, or 10%, or whatever it is in any given service. So that needs to be part of the design pattern, and that's why we created, to pick a different example, the API service. So what that really is we call it the iHub. It allows any system to integrate with any other system on campus, and it also allows people like researchers to publish data sets to the public, or to allow apps to produce or consume information. It's a generic service that's available, but the whole point is, what we found was people in departments were getting dissed for having shadow systems. Well, those systems were sort of described in a derogatory way, but they were put in place for really important reasons for those departments, and then in order to make them work, they had to do scraping of the central systems of record and other stuff. So by creating the iHub, the design philosophy here really is that we're enabling the departments to only have to build the 20% part they needed to build, while they can leverage the other centrally, maintained systems. And that really is speaking to your point, I think, of trying to. We know we're not going to solve 100% of the problems at the center. They have to be distributed. So yeah, I think that I hope I answered your question, but the idea is that's something that we think a lot about. How can we make things available and not have it be an all or nothing of you have to use this central service or you're the enemy, because that's not the way Berkeley works.
I think to add to that too, you have to be, as a consumer of central IT services, any one of them, you have to, as a consumer, be a good customer, right? With the solution that Bill was talking about with Haas wasn't something that Bill and his team dreamed up. Hey, Haas probably has a problem. Let's go figure out if we can solve it. It was a Haas saying, hey, we have a problem. Can we partner with you? And Bill saying, yeah, I trust you. You trust me. Let's figure it out. That's easy. I think you have to ask, and you're not going to get anything unless you ask.
So I'm really excited to hear, Liz, what you've said about the fact that you want stories and you want people's stories. But I think what we're missing in this whole picture is that we don't get the story of the successes and the failures of our projects. And that, I worked with hundreds of projects over my years here at UC. I get that little in-depth back perspective on different projects. And some have been really successful and some have been really great. And there's no recognition of which ones are which, I think. We move on and we have the next project before we really know what we did worked and what we really didn't work. I mean, I could tell you today what projects I think are most successful on this campus. And I think what's going to be really valuable within the the service catalog is going to be a way for people to say, is this working for me? And not just administration looking and saying, oh, this service doesn't get utilized. Maybe the people need to be able to feed back, this is something I want, but I can't use it. Or this is something that's working for me, and this is something that's working great, and these are the reasons why. As a person with a disability, I want to be able to say, I can't use this service, but I can use this one really well. And this is the service I really need to use, but I can't get to it.
I think that, Lucy, that's a great point, and actually that is something we've been talking quite a bit about recently, actually, when the IT leadership group of the folks who report to Larry, about the need to create better mechanisms for getting feedback on the services and what is working and what isn't working, and is this even the right service? Are people, and you can judge some of that by usage, right? If people aren't using it, you might guess that it's not an effective service. But I think there are probably many cases where it's actually is something we need, but it just isn't being delivered as effectively as it could be. And so I don't think we've solved the the question of how exactly are we going to go about doing that, but one of the underlying components of this IT service catalog work has been to create a portfolio of services. And we started, as I said before, with what I call the big four, because across those groups, it accounts for about 60% of the total IT spend on campus. So what actually will get exposed in the IT service catalog is not the complete set of stuff that we do. But part of what the goal is there is to really understand better what it is we do, and then enable conversations about what's good, what's bad, what should we maybe stop doing so we could do something else, or how can we improve or upgrade a service. So I think what we're trying to do with a bunch of this work is lay some foundation for being able to have better dialogues about our services and understand what they cost and, a whole host of things. But I think that is a really important point.
Hi. Is it on? Okay, great. Hi, I work for the Student Technology Council. I recognize a lot of you. I have a question. I kind of want to turn the tables a little bit in the spirit of the last few comments and questions. In terms of communicating and understanding the student experience and having students really being at the center of services designed for them, I'm really curious, how can we help students understand and engage and advocate for themselves within the university IT structure? Basically along the lines of how can students be better customers? How can we improve in engaging and advocating for ourselves with you and with all of you as well? I'd like to open this question to the audience as well if you all want to come up to me after this. I'm really curious how I can report back to the STC, the Student Technology Council, and the students at large about how we can be better customers.
May I? Okay. Thank you so much for even being here. So I don't know if you all realize in the room, the Student Technology Council is not an absolutely new organization, but the last 4 to 5 years, it's really, really come together. And I think Liz helped start that with an earlier group that was trying to just look at the student technology fee, and we were just trying to figure out how to get one passed. And the students that come to that council that help sponsor the app development contests and some things across the campus are activists in their own right, trying to actually make their institution better. So thank you for your service and leadership. And it's separate from the ASUC. It's not an elected governing group that's trying to work with the senior leadership. It's advisory, and now it's actually in a place where they're helping, I think, other students get plugged in. So the question is valid because on this SIS project, we thought we would, just get some input, work with the council. But there are 37,000 students on this campus, and it is really difficult to bring them in. And one of the things that we learned just recently on the SIS project is that even though we thought we had good input around the early rollout, once they start touching the tools, they realize that they're not working for them. They want to come in and, as Kevin said, be good customers. They want to help us be better. And so just as a quick story, I know we only have 5 minutes, now 4. We have received some letters of concern from students who are trying to get plugged in, and we need to find a way through our websites and different places where we can welcome those voices. These 60 students reached out, said, we have real serious concerns about the new system that you're rolling out. It's not meeting our needs in these core areas. All 60 signatures. Bernie and the team on SIS actually contacted the primary organizers of that letter and brought them in. We met with them that night, the day we got the letter. Those students, Leo, Abigail, Harry, the 3 primary folks, and I'm sharing this as an example about how you can do this. When you're saying how can students be better, push in and ask the question, because they met with us that first night. We're kind of upset that we'd rolled some stuff out. We started capturing their concerns and turned that now into an active channel for getting information into the group, hearing their feedback, and then reflecting back out to them, did we get it right? And so they're now participating with us on an ongoing basis. They created a social networking page right away, and one of the best quotes ever was, we would have written this better and more articulately if we had realized you were actually going to listen. I'm not exaggerating. This is what was said. So we had them come in, and now, and again, we're not going to get it right, and it's going to be really, really messy. Whatever we're doing, whether it's SIS or some other service, we're not going to get it right unless we're listening to the people that are using those tools. And so I think advocating more support and awareness across the campus for students, if you engage with them, or working with faculty, faculty, send your students, and your faculty to people who are trying to design these tools and systems, because we need those voices. And now there's 2 minutes remaining.
Ooh, I've got one. So I'll just add that that is one of the great strengths of the Student Technology Council itself. As Angela said, with 37,000 students, you can't turn to 2 or 10 or 20 or 50 for that matter, and say, well, you're the representatives of the student body. Now tell us what we need to do. That's just unrealistic. But one of the things that the STC has historically been very helpful with is in fact helping us do the outreach. Again, it'll never be perfect, but I think of the testing effort, Angela, that you were referring to with the student system. That was golden. Now, were we happy to hear what we heard? No, but we needed to hear that, and again, I think keeping that some kind of an engagement going is critical.